Welcome, everyone. This is your friend, the DN What If, here with another exciting fanfiction. Today, we're diving into the story of What If Deku Had Eyes That Saw Everything? If you enjoy this video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more fanfiction content just like this. Now, let's get started with the fanfic. It was Izuku Midoriya's 4th birthday, and the small apartment was filled with warmth, laughter, and the scent of cake. Inko Midoriya had decorated the room with colorful balloons and streamers, doing her best to make it a special day for her son. The absence of Izuku's father, Hisashi, was a quiet ache in her chest, but she did her best to push it aside, focusing on the happiness that filled the room. "Happy birthday, my little hero," Inko whispered, kneeling down beside Izuku, her voice soft and full of love. Izuku's smile stretched from ear to ear as he clutched his new All Might action figure in his tiny hands. "Thanks, Mom. You're the bestest mom ever." Katsuki and his parents had arrived earlier, and Katsuki Bakugo, always full of energy, was already eyeing the cake. His mother, Mitsuki, quickly redirected his attention. "Don't rush it, Katsuki. We're waiting for Izuku to finish opening his gifts," she said with a sharp but amused tone. Izuku, still beaming, ran over to Katsuki, his All Might figure in hand. "Kaken, look at my new All Might figure. He's so cool. I want to be just like him one day." Katsuki, still with his arms crossed, smirked, puffing out his chest with pride. "Yeah, I bet you will. But I'm gonna be stronger than you when we're heroes, Izuku." The adults chuckled watching the boys play. Inko smiled, seeing the friendship between the two. The conversations around her drifted from the topic of quirks, and she let herself relax for a moment, glad to see the boys so happy. As the party went on, the topic of quirks eventually came up, as it often did with young children. Masaru Bakugo, ever proud of his son, glanced at Inko. "You know, Katsuki's quirk is starting to show some real potential. His explosions are still like small firecrackers, but Dr. Garaki said it's only a matter of time before he can make actual explosions with his sweat," he said, his voice full of pride. Inko smiled warmly but said nothing. She didn't mind the conversation. After all, it was only natural that the kids were already thinking of becoming heroes. Katsuki, still riding the high of his new figure, bounced excitedly. "I can't wait to use my quirk for real. I'm gonna be every villain's worst nightmare." Izuku's eyes sparkled with excitement as he nodded enthusiastically. "I know you'll be a great hero, Kaken." Katsuki grinned, then turned serious. He crossed his arms and said, "Yeah, we'll both be heroes. And we'll be the strongest ones. When you get your quirk eye, we'll be heroes together." Izuku's face lit up. The idea of being heroes together, of helping people and becoming strong like the heroes they admired, filled him with excitement. He reached out his pinky, eager to seal the promise. "I promise too, Kaken. We'll be the greatest heroes ever." Bakugo, after a moment of hesitation, grinned and took Izuku's hand. "You better keep that promise, Izuku. I'm gonna be the best, and you'd better not hold me back." Izuku nodded eagerly, his heart full of joy. Together, they would be heroes. The adults smiled at the boys, their bond growing stronger with every passing day. Inko couldn't help but feel a swell of pride. Despite everything, her son had found a true friend, someone who believed in him to reach his dream. And just for a moment, Inko allowed herself to believe in that promise too. It was a rainy afternoon when Katsuki's father, Masaru, picked up the two boys from the park. The weather had turned unexpectedly, and Katsuki was soaked from head to toe, his clothes clinging to his body. "Demon rain," Katsuki muttered, stomping into the back seat of his father's car. "I can't even use my quirk with the rain all over me." Izuku, however, wasn't wet at all. His clothes were dry, his hair perfectly styled, and not a drop of water clung to him. His calm, content smile only made Bakugo scowl even more. "What the hell?" Katsuki grumbled, looking at Izuku with shock. "How are you dry? You were standing right next to me in the rain," pointing at him. Izuku blinked up at him, confused. "I don't know. I wasn't even paying attention. But I feel fine." Masaru Bakugo, glancing in the rearview mirror, raised an eyebrow. "Izuku, your quirk must have awakened, huh?" Izuku's eyes widened. A quirk? Really? Does that mean I have a quirk now? Maybe, Masaru said with a thoughtful tone. It's probably something related to, I don't know, some kind of barrier? Something keeping the rain away from you. It's rare, but we've seen quirks like this before. Maybe you can protect yourself from things like wind or other attacks with it. Izuku's face lit up. Does that mean I have a telepathic quirk? Like I can talk to people without words? Bakugo snorted. What? You think your quirk is better than mine just because it's different? Whatever it is, it's not gonna be stronger than my explosions. Izuku giggled, his excitement growing. But what if it is? Maybe I can control what I touch. Maybe I can even be a hero like All Might. Masaru chuckled and glanced at the rearview mirror again. Calm down, you two. We're not sure exactly what Izuku's quirk is yet, but it might be related to his mom's telepathic abilities. Just don't get ahead of yourselves. Izuku was practically bouncing in his seat. Do you think my quirk can help me be a hero, uncle? Like even stronger than All Might? Izuku's smile was nearly blinding as he thought of the future. I'm going to be the greatest hero. I'll be just like All Might. But what he didn't notice was the apprehensive look on his friend's face. Katsuki's fists clenched in the back seat, eyes narrowed as he stared out the window. The next day, Izuku and his mother visited Dr. Garaki, the quirk specialist. The doctor's clinic was sterile and white, with machines that beeped softly in the background. Izuku was nervous but excited, clutching his All Might figure in his hands. He couldn't wait to find out what his quirk was. Dr. Garaki performed a series of tests, examining Izuku's body and quirk potential with great care. His findings were precise, and after some time, the doctor finally looked up, adjusting his glasses. Interesting, Garaki muttered, scribbling notes on a clipboard. Izuku Midoriya, your quirk is a unique one. You have the ability to create an infinite barrier, a barrier that slows down anything that approaches you. Inko gasped. A barrier? But how does that work? Garaki nodded. It's a very rare quirk. A defensive one, certainly. But there are signs of something else, too. Mutations in Izuku's eyes. They might be developing into something else entirely. I believe his eyes may be evolving into something more complex. Izuku's eyes widened. I have something even more amazing? You might, Garaki continued. We'll need to test his eyes next week to see if they enhance his sight or if there's something more to them. But for now, you should be very proud, Miss Midoriya. Izuku has a strong quirk. Izuku's face lit up, tears brimming in his eyes as he clutched his All Might figure tightly to his chest. His heart raced with excitement. I'm going to be a hero. I really can be a hero. Inko smiled, gently brushing his hair back. Yes, you can, Izuku. You can be just like All Might. Izuku nodded enthusiastically, his heart pounding with pride and excitement. He knew his future was bright, and there was nothing that could stop him now. But as he left the clinic, he couldn't shake the thought of what Kaken would think. He'd show everyone. He and Kaken were going to be the best heroes ever. The rain had slowed, but the forest was still damp, every step squelching in the mud. Katsuki's boots were heavy with the water they'd soaked up, and his patience was wearing thin. He felt the sting of insects biting at his skin as he walked, irritated by every little annoyance. Behind him, Izuku and his lackeys trudged along, the usual distance between them now feeling more like a chasm. Katsuki glanced over his shoulder, his eyes flicking to the two lackeys trailing behind. They were still tagging along, wet and miserable, too quiet to make any noise other than their shuffling footsteps. He didn't even remember their names. He never cared to. They were just followers, nothing more. He'd always been the one in charge, and that was how it would stay. A branch suddenly whipped out from the side, catching the first lackey across the face. He yelped in surprise, stumbling backward. Katsuki barely acknowledged it, not caring in the least. The lackey recovered quickly, but Katsuki could tell he'd taken a small cut. His own arms had a few scrapes, too, as if the trees themselves were trying to remind him that nature wasn't particularly kind. He didn't mind the roughness. What didn't kill him would make him stronger. He turned forward again, not even looking back to see if anyone was following. But that's when he made a mistake. The shallow river came up quickly, and before he could react, his foot slipped on the muddy bank. Sheet! Katsuki cursed as he fell forward, his body crashing into the cold water. He grunted in frustration as the water splashed up, soaking him completely. He quickly pushed himself up, his face twisted in annoyance as the wet clothes clung to his body. His usual fire was gone, replaced by a quiet irritation that burned just as hot. He shook his head furiously, trying to get the water out of his hair, but the cold kept it stuck to his skin. Behind him, Izuku's voice called out, full of concern. "Katsuki, are you okay?" Katsuki stood there for a moment, clenching his jaw. He could hear Izuku's footsteps as he approached, the sound of his friend's cheerful tone always there, even in this miserable and damp place. He couldn't take it anymore. Izuku stepped into view, his face full of worry. "Let me help you up." Katsuki's gaze shot up, locking eyes with Izuku. His quirk kept him from getting wet, as always. There wasn't a single drop of water on him or a single scrape or even a speck of dirt. The air around Izuku seemed to shimmer faintly, like a barrier kept the rain from even touching him. And to top it all off, the DMN sunglasses. Those black, strange sunglasses Izuku wore at all times now, something about controlling his quirk, they said. Izuku's outstretched hand hovered just in front of Katsuki, his green eyes wide with concern. Katsuki's fists clenched, his teeth grinding as his frustration bubbled to the surface. "I don't need your help." Katsuki snapped, his voice loud and harsh. "You think I'm weak? I don't need anyone, especially you, to help me. You're just a useless Deku." Izuku's hand remained there, but his eyes dimmed, hurt flashing across his face for just a split second. He didn't move, waiting, hoping that maybe Katsuki would change his mind. But Katsuki was too far gone now. He shoved past Izuku, ignoring the hand his friend offered. "Don't touch me," Katsuki growled, his voice dripping with disdain. Izuku took a step back, unsure of what to say or do. His heart ached from the words Katsuki had just thrown at him. But before he could voice any thoughts, Katsuki was already storming off, not even sparing a second glance. As he walked away, Katsuki muttered under his breath, his anger now fueling his every step. "I'll be stronger than you, Deku. You and your stupid quirk. I'll be the strongest hero ever, stronger than anyone. Stronger than All Might." The streets blurred together in a mess of rushing crowds, the rhythmic sound of its gelatinous body squelching as it slid through narrow alleys, desperate to escape. The slime villain's pulse raced, its body trembling with panic. Its escape had been barely by a hair's breadth. All Might. The very thought of the symbol of peace sent shivers through the slime's form. The chase had started moments ago, a failed robbery, a simple smash and grab. But it hadn't counted on the presence of All Might. His arrival had been sudden, like a storm breaking through the horizon. The villain's heart had pounded in its chest as it heard the unmistakable sound of his footsteps, slow, deliberate, but impossibly fast. Every movement from the hero was like a thunderclap. It had been caught in the open, with no way to fight back, no time to plan. "I need to hide." The slime villain's mind raced as it fled, squeezing through cracks, ducking into alleyways. The city around it seemed alive, indifferent, but the villain could feel All Might's presence closing in. It wasn't safe. The villain couldn't outrun the hero. It had learned that much in the moments of the chase. There was no hiding from someone like him, not with brute force alone. The villain paused, flattening itself against the wall of an old building, its form barely visible to the untrained eye. Its tendrils curled against the bricks, trying to calm its frenzied thoughts. The sound of All Might's steps were faint, but it could still hear him. There was no way to run any further. "I need to survive, I need to." The slime villain's thoughts were cut short as a strange sensation cut through the air. Its instincts flared, alerting it to the presence of something, or rather, someone just up ahead. A figure. The boy walking down the street, surrounded by a few other children. He was just one of many. He looked ordinary, like any other student heading home for the day. His dark green hair was messy, his clothes typical for a student. Nothing about him stood out in any particular way. Yet the slime villain felt something. It wasn't power, not in the way it had felt All Might's overwhelming presence. But it was different. Something about this boy resonated, like the air itself shifted slightly around him. It was subtle, just a flicker. But the slime could sense it, like a knot of potential. A shield of some kind, the faintest hum of energy surrounding him. The boy walked along, his eyes hidden behind sunglasses, dark, reflective, blocking out the world in a way that was almost unnerving. The slime villain's attention snapped to those glasses, a curiosity beginning to grow. But the boy? He was normal. Normal in the way most humans were. He had no idea that the slime was even here, no idea that danger was on its way. He was just another face in the crowd, moving in rhythm with the others, heading to where he needed to go. Yet the slime could feel it, a strange sense of opportunity. He's unguarded. In that moment, the slime villain realized it didn't need to run. It didn't need to keep escaping. It just needed to hide. And this boy, this ordinary, unassuming child, was the perfect candidate. The slime villain's form rippled with a quick, fleeting thought. The boy's quirk. It was there but faint. Just barely noticeable. It wasn't as powerful as All Might's, but it could be useful. There was something about him. Something the slime could use. I can't outrun All Might forever. But this boy could be my shield. The slime paused, still hidden in the alley, watching the boy move through the crowd, completely unaware of the predator just a few steps away. The slime's mind raced with possibilities. It had no time to waste. All Might would be upon it any second now. It needed to make its move. Right now. End chapter text. Izuku stood at the curb, tiny fingers gripping the sides of his sunglasses to push them back up again. They were too big for his face, a cheap, child-sized pair Inko bought to help with his light sensitivity, though the doctors hadn't figured out why he needed them yet. The lenses didn't fix much. If anything, they made the world look even stranger. Cars rushed past in long, melting streaks of color. The traffic light above him doubled into 2 glowing blobs, then 3. He tried blinking, squinting, rubbing the edge of one lens with his sleeve, but everything still shimmered and wobbled at the edges. Kaken? Izuku asked, voice small. Is the light green? I can't tell again. Katsuki Bakugo let out a sharp exhale beside him. He'd been impatient to get to Izuku's place, snacks, TV, nothing special, but Izuku's weird new eye problem slowed everything down. For the past week, Izuku had been misjudging steps, bumping into desks, squinting even with sunglasses on. Now he looked genuinely confused by a simple crosswalk. Katsuki checked the signal. It's red. Stop leaning forward like that, you'll fall into the road. Izuku froze and stepped back from the edge. Cars whooshed by, and Izuku instinctively lifted his chin, trying to follow the motion. Bad idea. The reflections on the car windows turned into bright streaks that seemed to glow right through the lenses. The world swirled and pulsed. His stomach twisted. He pushed his sunglasses up again, but they slid right back down his small nose. Katsuki watched the struggle for a long second. He looked annoyed. He looked impatient. But he also looked aware. Aware that if Izuku crossed alone like this, he might step straight into a honking truck without ever seeing it coming. Finally, the crosswalk beeped its signal. The light changed. Katsuki didn't bolt forward. He grabbed Izuku's wrist firmly, almost irritably, and pulled him along. Come on. You'll walk into the wrong lane without me. Izuku stumbled at first, vision still shimmering, but Katsuki's strong tug kept him steady. The sunglasses slipped down again, and Izuku pushed them up mid-step, nearly losing his balance as he did. A horn honked somewhere in the distance. Izuku startled, wobbling off the painted white line. Katsuki pulled him sharply back. Hey! Stay next to me. Sorry. My glasses, they're all fuzzy. They're supposed to help, idiot. They don't. Katsuki clicked his tongue, annoyed at everything and nothing. Then just stay close. And keep your hand down. You look dumb waving at your face. He held onto Izuku until they made it across, only letting go once they were safely on the opposite sidewalk. He immediately brushed his palms off like he'd just been dealing with a dusty toy. You're a real headache, you know that? Katsuki muttered. Izuku nodded, embarrassed but relieved. Thank you. Kaken. Katsuki looked away quickly as if pretending he hadn't heard. Yeah. We're almost at your place anyway. Just keep up. They continued toward the Midoriya apartment, Katsuki walking a step ahead but never far enough to lose Izuku, and Izuku following the steady shape of his friend against the blurry, shifting world behind his sunglasses. School had just ended, but Izuku didn't head straight home. He almost never did. Muzudafu after 3 p.m. was his favorite hunting ground, hero activity, potential fights, rare all-might merch, anything to shake off the boredom. He walked in his uniform, bag slung lazily over one shoulder. His sunglasses hid the glow of his fully manifested 6 eyes, dampening the sensory flood. Without them, the world would burn with too much detail, quirk energy, biological signatures, stress patterns in concrete, all of it blazing like neon in the sun. Even with the sunglasses, the world looked like a layered map only he could read. People didn't just walk past him. He saw their quirks. A man with a tail quirk, the energy pooled in his spine. A woman with a transformation type, and used power coiled like dormant fire. A kid running ahead, emitter quirk, low power, harmless sparks. He couldn't turn it off. Not fully. Okay, don't overanalyze. Just keep walking. Breathe. Every few steps, Izuku lifted his chin slightly, scanning the distance. Buildings peeled back in transparent layers. Quirk signatures flickered all around like constellations. Scanning for hero fights? Nothing major. A small scuffle 2 blocks over, resolved instantly by a sidekick. Scanning for rare all-might merch? He zoomed in through a convenience store window across. The intersection. New hero pins. No limited editions. He sighed. So boring, there has to be something today. And then, something wrong pulsed beneath the street. A quirk signature that didn't match any stable pattern. Turbulent. Aggressive. Fluid but sentient. Izuku focused instinctively. Type. Transformation fluidization. Weaknesses. Dispersion, high-precision impact, concentrated pressure points. Targeting. Midsection, seeking to envelop and parasitize. Before it could even reach him, Izuku raised his hand. He didn't need to think. Infinity responded automatically. A faint shimmer appeared around him, a barrier that slowed the slime as it reached toward him. Its tendrils struck the invisible shield and froze midair, quivering like water against a glass wall. Each one distorted but could not penetrate. His 6 eyes tracked the flow of the attack in real time, letting him anticipate every movement with surgical precision. Stay back. Izuku muttered, keeping his focus split between analyzing and defending. Sweat prickled at his brow behind his sunglasses, but he refused to falter. His infinity was a wall, yes, but it required conscious attention to keep the outer boundary stable. The slime hissed, flowing around the edges of the invisible barrier. Its core quirk pattern twisted, trying to find weak points in his defense. Izuku's 6 eyes zoomed in, targeting the center of mass, compression at precise vector, velocity too high for normal attack, focus. No. With a microshift, he redirected the infinity field subtly, letting it compress the outer layer just enough to destabilize the slime. The villain wobbled, parts of its body collapsing inward, struggling to maintain cohesion. And then, a massive shockwave hit behind him. Wind roared, knocking debris into the air. The street vibrated under his feet. Even through infinity, Izuku felt the force radiate. I am here. All might landed, towering and bright, hands already scooping up parts of the slime with casual, precise motions. Every micro-movement, every muscle contraction, was visible to Izuku thanks to 6 eyes. He could even see the faint imperfections in All Might's own quirk, the slight instability in certain tendon groups, the asymmetry in force distribution, and store it away mentally for later. Fear not, citizen. All Might boomed. You are safe. The street had fallen silent. The sludge villain's attempts to escape had been contained, bottles now held its writhing mass, but Izuku remained in awe, sunglasses slightly crooked. Infinity shimmered faintly around him, 6 eyes scanning every corner, every movement, ensuring no threat remained. All Might was here. The symbol of peace. Larger than life, radiating strength, authority, and calm assurance. Izuku froze, heart hammering in his chest. "You're really here," he whispered. All Might's smile was broad, reassuring. "Yes. And you handled yourself back there, didn't you?" Izuku swallowed, straightening his posture. "I tried my best, sir." All Might's gaze softened. "That is commendable. But remember, young one, a hero is not defined solely by their ability to fight. Courage, selflessness, and the will to protect others, that is what truly matters." Izuku nodded, his fingers tightening around the strap of his bag. "I understand, sir. I want to be a hero. I want to help people and protect them, just like you." All Might's smile widened. "Good. That is the mindset that forms a hero. But you must also learn restraint. Recklessness, no matter how well-intentioned, can put others in danger." Nodding his head, Izuku dug into his backpack and produced his notebook. "Sir, could you sign this?" "All right," All Might said, taking the notebook and pen. "Just be careful with it." The signature complete, All Might rose into the air with ease. A rush of wind swept over the rooftop. Wait," Izuku called, gripping All Might's arm instinctively as they lifted off. "All right, young man. Let go." All Might shouted over the roar of wind. "I can't," Izuku admitted, holding tight. "I need to ask you something. Please, just a moment." With a slight laugh, All Might allowed it, carefully maintaining altitude. They landed on a nearby rooftop, wind still tugging at their clothes. All Might's expression hardened slightly. "You must never act so recklessly again. You could have been injured or worse," he admonished. Izuku released him immediately, nodding earnestly. "I understand, sir. I'll never do that again." For a moment, All Might's posture shifted, and in the blink of an eye, his towering form shrank. The muscles and height receded, leaving the frail, skinny figure beneath the hero's imposing exterior. Izuku blinked, processing the sight. "Sir," he began, astonishment lacing his voice. "Yes," All Might said quietly. "This is the reality behind the symbol. But the form is not what makes the hero. Strength lies in the choices, courage, and determination to protect. And," his voice lowered slightly, "I need you to keep this form a secret. No one else must know." Izuku's gaze sharpened behind his sunglasses. "I understand. I promise I won't tell anyone." All Might inclined his head, a faint smile forming. "Good. That is very important. One day, you may face truths that test you beyond what you imagine." Izuku adjusted his sunglasses. "Sir, can someone become a hero with a quirk like mine? A defensive quirk?" All Might's eyes softened, and a faint smile formed. "Being a hero is about saving lives, not fighting villains. Any quirk, if mastered, can be used to protect and save others. Take Cementos, for example. His quirk may seem simple, creating concrete, but he uses it to rescue, to protect, and to control situations without unnecessary harm. A defensive quirk, in the right hands, can save countless lives." Izuku's fists clenched at his sides, determination shining through. "I understand. I'll train hard and use it to help people." All Might chuckled, a warm, approving sound. "I know you will, young one. Keep striving forward. Now if you would excuse me, I should take this villain into custody." With a powerful gust, All Might rose again, soaring into the sky. Izuku watched him go, the wind tugging at his uniform, and his mind racing. He noted, almost subconsciously, how All Might's quirk felt strange, as if it were composed of multiple quirks combined, flowing seamlessly through him. School finally let out, and Katsuki stomped down the street, hands shoved into his pockets, frustration simmering just beneath his skin. Behind him, his usual tagalongs scrambled. "Keep up. Man, I still can't believe Deku stuck his nose in our business again," the rounder one complained, wings twitching irritably. "All that just to stop us from knocking some sense into that extra? What's his problem?" "Seriously," the taller lackey added with a snort. "All that hero crap he spews, getting involved like he's some big shot. Katsuki clicked his tongue, glaring ahead. Idiots. He didn't jump in because of some righteous crap. He thinks that freaky barrier quirk makes him safe now. He didn't stop walking, but his scowl deepened. Izuku getting involved, Izuku looking him in the eye like he wasn't afraid anymore, left a sour weight in his chest. Still, Winged muttered, he's crazy for stepping in. Anyone else would have stayed out of our way. Katsuki was about to tell them to shut up when something caught his foot, a plastic soda bottle, rolling lazily across the pavement. What the hell? He muttered and kicked it aside without looking. The bottle hit the curb, splitting open. A thick, wet mass poured out, bubbling and reforming into a shifting smear of sludge. Before any of them could react, the distorted face of the sludge villain rose up, eyes bulging, teeth dripping. Perfect. Katsuki stiffened, palms sparking instinctively. The villain's eyes focused directly on him. A strong vessel, but not ideal. Still, you will do, until I claim the kid with the barrier quirk. Katsuki's jaw clenched. The hell are you talking about? The villain lunged. Back off. Katsuki blasted an explosion at his feet, propelling himself backward in a sharp, controlled burst. The sludge claws snapped closed around empty air, splashing uselessly across the pavement. The villain hissed, reforming sluggishly. Fast brat. Would have been easier if you froze like the last kid. Its eyes darted to Katsuki's lackeys. Both stood trembling, especially the winged one, sweat dripping down his round face. Fine, the sludge rasped. Another host will do for now. Before the boys could run, the villain whipped around and lunged at the winged lackey, slamming into him with a disgusting gurgle. Aya! The other lackey stumbled back horrified. Katsuki's eyes widened not with fear, but rage as sludge wrapped around the boy's torso and legs, shoving itself down his throat, forcing him upright like a puppet. The boy's wings flailed, feathers scattering. The villain's voice echoed from within the writhing host. Yes, this one will work. Strong lungs. Good reach. Now let's have some fun. The possessed boy lurched forward, wings twitching violently as the villain forced his body into a stumbling, unnatural charge straight toward Katsuki. Katsuki lowered his stance, palms crackling. Bring it on. Izuku had only just started walking home, the wind still carrying faint traces of All Might's presence, when a sudden spike of distorted energy flashed across his vision. His 6 eyes snapped into focus instinctively, the world sharpening, stretching, widening. A chaotic cluster of quirks flared in the distance. Explosive heat signatures, frantic thermal spikes, the ragged, unstable pulse of the sludge villain's mass. And Katsuki's quirk? Bright, hot, angry but strained, like a flame being choked. Izuku's breath hitched. Kaken? His body moved before his brain caught up, sneakers slapping the pavement as he sprinted toward the disturbance. Even through his sunglasses, the enhanced perception carved a path for him. Every alley, every angle, every shortcut burned into clarity. When he turned the final corner, the scene slammed into him at once. A crowd of civilians. Pro-heroes shouting orders. Smoke and dust hanging thick in the air. And in the center, the winged boy Katsuki hung around with, now twisted and bulging with sludge, the villain's grotesque face bulging from the kid's shoulder. Katsuki had been caught mid-explosion, arm pinned, sludge clutching at him, dragging him closer to the host's grasp. The villain's rasp echoed across the street. Stop struggling, brat. You'll make a much better container. Katsuki snarled, blasting at the slime desperately, but every explosion only bought him seconds. Izuku's lungs tightened. He didn't hesitate. He didn't think. He ran straight into the scene, past the yellow caution tape and the horrified shouts of heroes behind him. Hey kid! Stop! Are you insane? Their voices didn't register. 6 eyes calculated everything in a heartbeat. Distance. Angles. Velocity. The sludge's movement pattern. Katsuki's slipping footing. The exact moment the villain would overpower him. Infinity flared around Izuku as he reached the barricade. The world slowing, stretching, every particle of dust clear as crystal. Katsuki's eyes widened when he saw him. Deku? What the hell are you? Izuku didn't answer. Didn't breathe. Didn't blink. He rushed straight through the barricade, through the smoke, through the danger, straight toward Katsuki. Because he could see with absolute clarity that Katsuki had seconds left before the villain forced its sludge into his mouth and nose. And Izuku Midoriya wasn't going to let that happen. The world sharpened into color and noise and Quirk signatures, all of it layered and pulsing in the precise map only the six eyes could draw. The sludge possessing the winged kid moved like a tangled knot of unstable energy, vibrating violently as it pulled on Katsuki's arms, forcing him closer. Katsuki was still fighting, explosions bursting from his palms in frantic, uneven blasts, desperation disguised as rage. Izuku didn't need to think. He simply acted. Kaken. Katsuki jerked at the sound of his voice, turning just as Izuku lunged forward. What the hell are you? Izuku grabbed him. And the moment his fingers touched Katsuki's wrist, infinity expanded. The world around them slowed, everything outside a few centimeters away suddenly separated by an invisible, humming space. Sludge tendrils struck at them and stopped, suspended inches from their skin like they had hit invisible glass. The villain recoiled. What? That barrier again? Izuku held tight to Katsuki's arm, voice trembling but steady. I've got you. Katsuki froze. Not because of the barrier. Not because of the villain. But because of the look on Izuku's face, terrified, determined, and entirely focused on keeping him alive. For a moment, Katsuki felt something twist hard in his chest. But why was Izuku running in here? Why was he risking his life? But the sludge villain slammed a tendril toward them again. And it stopped. Slowed. Not resisted. Stopped. Like the air itself refused to let it move. Katsuki stared at the space between them, that shimmering, impossible gap. You idiot, Katsuki breathed out. His voice cracked, too thin to hide the fear. You should have run. Izuku's hands were shaking, but his grip on Katsuki didn't loosen. I couldn't. Katsuki's throat tightened. He couldn't explain why, but hearing that made something break inside him. The villain shrieked, thrashing the wings of its unwilling host. Fine. I'll tear through your shield. Once I'm done, I'll get you, the boy with the barrier quirk. I'll pry it right off your body. Katsuki tried to pull away, out of instinct, pride, fear, he didn't know which. But Izuku only held on tighter. Infinity hummed louder. And then, a gust of wind blasted the street. Six eyes registered it before he fully reacted. A familiar Quirk signature. Massive. Blinding. As brilliant and scorching as a miniature sun slamming into the city. All me under. A booming voice cut through the chaos. Detroit. Smosh. Air compressed. Buildings shook. The sludge villain, host and all, was ripped clean off the ground, torn apart in a single burst of concussive wind. Izuku instinctively tightened infinity around Katsuki, holding them both in a perfectly protected bubble as the shockwave tore through the street. Katsuki's hair whipped wildly in the wind, but he wasn't touched. Not by dust. Not by debris. Not by anything. When the wind finally settled, the winged kid collapsed unconscious, free of the villain. The remaining sludge splattered harmlessly around the crater in steaming chunks. And standing in the center of the destruction, cape fluttering, muscles gleaming, eyes blazing. All Might. Izuku stared, breath frozen. Katsuki's eyes widened even further. All Might's gaze swept over the scene, then locked on the two boys at the center of the untouched space. His smile wavered just slightly when he saw Izuku's hand gripping Katsuki's wrist and the faint distortion of infinity still shimmering around them. Katsuki swallowed hard. Izuku had been the first to move. Izuku had held off the villain. Izuku had kept him alive. He hated that. And he hated how relieved he felt even more. He stared at Izuku, still breathing fast, still focused entirely on him, and his chest tightened again in a way he didn't understand. Deku, he muttered, voice low and hoarse, let go already. But he didn't pull away. Not yet. The shockwave from All Might's Detroit smash had barely settled when he leapt away again, vanishing in a streak of speed before the dust even stopped swirling. Izuku could tell instantly why the signature of All Might's power had flickered, unstable, weaker. He ran off so fast the heroes didn't even get to thank him. Katsuki was pried from his grasp by paramedics, still coughing angrily, still shaking with adrenaline he refused to show. The unconscious winged kid, now free of the sludge, was already being loaded into an ambulance. Izuku tried to follow, to check on Kaken, but a hand grabbed his shoulder. A strong one. Death arms. Kid. The hero loomed over him, frustration sharp in his voice. What the hell were you thinking rushing in like that? Izuku flinched, eyes wide behind his sunglasses. I just Kaken was. That villain could have killed you. Death arms snapped. We had the situation under control. Kamui Woods approached, tone calmer but firm. You put yourself and others at risk. Recklessness like that doesn't make you a hero. Backdraft, still extinguishing burning debris, called over his shoulder. Be grateful you're not in the ambulance with the other two. Izuku bowed repeatedly, voice cracking. I'm sorry. I couldn't just watch. He was in danger. Death arms sighed, rubbing the bridge of his nose. Look, you've got guts. But guts alone get people killed. Leave this stuff to us pros, okay? Izuku nodded weakly. Yes, sir. By the time they let him go, the ambulances carrying Katsuki and the winged boy were already pulling away, sirens echoing down the street. Izuku watched them disappear. His head felt heavy, not emotionally, but physically. 6 eyes strained from maintaining enhanced focus for too long. Infinity pulsed faintly around him, flickering in and out with every breath. His vision swam as he began walking home. Everything felt distorted. Too sharp and too blurry at the same time. Colors were too bright. Sensations too loud. His sunglasses weren't enough to dull the overload. I pushed the 6 eyes too long. I shouldn't have used infinity so much. But he kept walking, trying to steady his breathing. Then another. A voice rasped from a nearby alley. Hey kid. Izuku froze. That wasn't All Might's booming voice. It was weak. Almost sickly. And saw a thin, bony man leaning against a wall, steam still trailing off his body. Sunken eyes. Slumped posture. Blood on his lip. Izuku stared. His 6 eyes confirmed it instantly. The Quirk signature was identical. Distorted, but identical. All Might? Izuku whispered. The skeleton-thin hero coughed twice, waving weakly for him to come closer. We should talk. Izuku's breath caught in his throat. All Might, the symbol of peace, in this frail, vulnerable state. And he was asking for him. The skeletal figure struggled to stand upright, one hand pressed against his side as steam drifted lazily from his body. It was so surreal that for a moment Izuku forgot how to breathe. All Might, what happened to you? The thin man gave a tired, lopsided smile. This, he said, gesturing vaguely to himself, is the real me, young Midoriya. I'm not exactly at full power these days. He coughed violently, a sharp, painful sound that made Izuku flinch. Then All Might pointed to his stomach. A deep scar, jagged and sunken. A villain gave this to me as parting gift. Now I can only maintain my quirk for 6 hours each day. A breeze drifted through the alley. Izuku stood frozen, staring at the ground, trying to process the impossible truth he'd just learned. All Might's voice came quieter this time, more thoughtful. I saw what you did back there. Running in to save a friend even when the pros hadn't acted. He paused. Foolish. Reckless. And very heroic. Izuku's head snapped up. All Might continued. Your quirk, defensive, refined, if you learn to control it, could save countless lives. The beat. And I would like to help you do that. Izuku's heart nearly stopped. What? All Might straightened a little, though his skeletal frame still shook from the strain. How about some proper training? Guidance? If you live up to the expectations I set? He grinned, even in his skinny form, the the spirit behind it was unmistakable. I'll personally recommend you to the most prestigious hero school in Japan. Izuku's breath caught. Yue? You'd recommend me to Yue? All Might nodded. If you earn it. Izuku's brain felt like it might combust. His eyes stung. He tried to answer but his voice cracked. Yes. I accept. I want to become a hero more than anything, and if you'll help me then. He stopped suddenly. I need to ask my mom first. For a full second All Might just stared at him. Then he burst into laughter, wheezy, coughing laughter, but genuine. Asking permission first, that's admirable. He wiped a tear from his eye. Haven't heard that one from a prospective hero in years. Izuku flushed, rubbing the back of his neck. She worries a lot. All Might chuckled again before leaning forward slightly. Before we begin this new journey, I should at least know the name of the young man I'll be mentoring. What do they call you? Izuku blinked rapidly, almost starstruck all over again. Oh, Thunderskirts Izuku. Izuku Midoriya. All Might straightened his thin back, giving him the most dignified smile his weak form allowed. Well then, young Midoriya. He extended a thin hand. Let's work hard together. Izuku took it, his whole arm trembling. Yes, sir. The antiseptic smell hit Katsuki the moment he was wheeled into the hospital room. His limbs ached, not from the slime's attacks, but from the adrenaline crash, the tension, and the sheer frustration of the situation. Katsuki, what the hell happened? His mother's sharp voice cut through the air. Mitsuki's eyes were wide with concern, while Masaru's arms were crossed, radiating equal parts worry and irritation. Katsuki glanced at them, feeling the weight of their attention. He hated looking weak, hated being questioned like a child. Still, he let out a low sigh, dejected. Nothing. Just some slime villain. Tried to possess me. I handled it. His father's frown deepened. Nothing? That looks like a hospital visit to me. Are you trying to act tough or something? Katsuki didn't answer immediately. Instead, he stared at the ceiling, replaying the scene over in his mind, the slime, the lackeys, the way Izuku had arrived seemingly out of nowhere and saved him. A quiet tension settled in the room. Katsuki's pride bristled at the thought, yet a small, begrudging respect tugged at the corner of his mind. He didn't like admitting it, but Deku had stepped up when it counted. His mother's gaze softened, her hand reaching out to grip his arm. I'm glad you're safe. That's all that matters. Katsuki exhaled, letting the tightness in his chest loosen just a little. Still, he couldn't shake the thought that maybe, just maybe, Izuku had grown far more capable than he realized. Dagoba Municipal Beach Park. The early morning fog clung to the rusted appliances scattered across the sand. Broken refrigerators, tangled nets, shattered concrete. The whole beach looked like the world's saddest boss arena. All Might, in his skeletal form, pointed proudly at the mountain of garbage. Welcome, young Midoriya. The beat. To your first step toward becoming a hero. Izuku swallowed hard. All of this? I have to clean all of it? Yes. All Might said cheerfully. Then less cheerfully, by hand. Izuku blinked behind his sunglasses. With my quirk? No, All Might said immediately. Quirkless. Izuku sputtered. But why? All Might crossed his thin arms. For one, physical strength will be vital in the entrance exam. Second, he eyed the massive concrete blocks skeptically. I doubt your quirk would be much help with something this heavy. Izuku deflated a little. He couldn't really argue with that. Infinity was defensive. Using it to lift trash would be like trying to shovel sand with a force field. All Might rubbed his chin. Speaking of which, I never did ask. What is your quirk, young Midoriya? Izuku straightened. Infinity. It's a barrier-type quirk. I can manipulate the space around me. And I have another quirk. All Might blinked. Another? The 6 eyes, Izuku said. They, let me see things. Not like normal vision. It's more like layers. Heat signatures, energy flow, quirk patterns, structural weaknesses, movement trajectories. He rubbed the side of his temple nervously. Everything. All at once. All Might looked genuinely stunned. That sounds overwhelming. It is. Without the sunglasses, it's constant overload. Too much detail. Too much motion. The world doesn't turn off. Izuku shrugged awkwardly. But I'm learning to handle it. All Might nodded slowly, impressed despite himself. A shielding quirk with hyperperceptive vision. Versatile if mastered. Then he slapped a stack of papers into Izuku's hands. But, before you learn to save others, you must shape yourself. Izuku stared at the binder. Bold title, Aim to Pass, American Dream Plan. All Might Edition. 10 months, All Might declared. 10 months until the UA entrance exam. You will become stronger, fitter, faster, and you will clean this beach while doing it. 10 months, All Might declared. 10 months until the UA entrance exam. You will become stronger, fitter, faster, and you will clean this beach while doing it. Izuku flipped through the page's workout schedules, diet plans, calorie charts, rest schedules, and bold warnings. Be home before sundown. Do not skip meals. Sleep is non-negotiable. Izuku blinked. Why these restrictions? All Might's expression darkened slightly. Your mother, young Midoriya, he shuddered, is far more intimidating than I imagined. Izuku blushed. She just wants me safe. And I intend to keep the rest of my internal organs. All Might coughed into his fist. So, follow the curfew. He pointed toward the mountain of trash again. Now UA High School. Its acceptance rate is the lowest of any hero course in Japan. Brutally selective. They only accepted 7 students last year. Izuku already knew that, but hearing it from All Might made his stomach twist. Izuku already knew that, but hearing it from All Might made his stomach twist. But, All Might went on, every single hero who graduates rises to the upper ranks of Japan's pro charts. And every Japanese hero who has ever broken into the world top 10 has come from UA. Their standards are impossibly high for a reason. He put a bony hand on Izuku's shoulder. That is why you must train harder than anyone. No shortcuts. No excuses. Izuku felt a spark inside his chest, determination, sharper than before. I'll do it, he said quietly. Whatever it takes. All Might grinned at him, thin, tired, but proud. That's the spirit. Now, he clapped sharply. Start with those refrigerators over there and drag them to the collection point. Izuku took a deep breath and began. The first week hurt. Not a normal hurt. A deep, bone-heavy, why do humans have muscles kind of hurt. Izuku dragged an old vending machine across the sand, every breath wheezing out of him. His thin arms trembled violently. All Might, skinny, sipping instant coffee, nodded approvingly. Good pace, young Midoriya. Only 8 more appliances today. Izuku let out a noise somewhere between a gasp and a dying bird. The 6 eyes flared automatically to help him understand angles of leverage and weight distribution. But the world sharpened too much, too fast. He stumbled. Everything glowed. Everything pulsed. Too much detail. Too many lines. I'm fine, Izuku croaked, blinking rapidly. All Might's face twisted with concern. Limit the fancy vision for now, he said. No use training physically if you overload your brain and fall over dead. Izuku nodded, shaky, forcing the vision down until only color and shape remained. By the end of week 3, the results started showing. Izuku could lift scrap he couldn't budge before. He could run across the sand without collapsing immediately. His posture straightened. He even gained a little muscle tone. All Might noticed. Increasing your loads by 10% next week, he muttered as he scribbled on his clipboard. You recover faster than expected. Izuku beamed despite the agony in his legs. Katsuki slammed his locker shut, irritation prickling his skin. Ever since that day, he had been different. Less hunched. Less jumpy. More focused. Stronger. When they left school, Katsuki caught a flash of Izuku jogging ahead, posture tight, breathing controlled, shirt damp with sweat. Not pathetic. Not wheezing. Just training. Katsuki clicked his tongue. What the hell are you doing, Deku? Izuku flinched slightly at his voice, but didn't stammer like usual. Training. And then he kept jogging. Katsuki stared after him, jaw tight. Something was changing. And he didn't like not knowing what. Izuku pushed himself too far. The six eyes activated on instinct while he lifted a heavy metal beam, and suddenly every grain of sand, every shift in weight, every atom of metal vibrating. His vision fractured. His breath caught. He dropped the beam and fell to his knees, clutching his sunglasses. All Might rushed over instantly. Midoriya. Good heavens, kid. Izuku gritted his teeth. I'm okay. Just too much input. All Might exhaled sharply, relief visible. Young man, if you give yourself a slide, your mother will murder me. Izuku managed a weak laugh. A month later, progress was steady but slow. The beach still looked like a landfill with ambition. Izuku, sore, sweaty, sunburned, stared at the towering heap of junk and sighed. All Might, what if, just hypothetically, I used my quirk to destroy the trash instead of lifting it? All Might raised a thin brow. If you mean demolish the garbage with raw power, then no. Izuku pouted. But, no. Then with a laugh. Unless you think you can blow it all away yourself. Use your quirk if you truly think it'll help. Give it your best shot, young Midoriya. He said it jokingly. Izuku did not take it as a joke. Izuku inhaled. He centered his focus the same way he did when stopping the slime villain. He reached inward. Into the pressure. Into the points between points. Into the field of vectors that six eyes revealed faintly even through the sunglasses. He felt the pull. The concept of attraction. Of drawing something toward nothing. Lapse, Izuku whispered. A small blue distortion flickered in the air ahead of him. A small blue distortion flickered in the air ahead of him. All Might, realizing the shift in energy, straightened. Midoriya? Blue. The world folded inward. A violent implosion of space and force rippled outward from the point of focus, dragging hundreds of pounds of trash into a single collapsing sphere. Compressing. Shredding. Pulverizing metal, plastic, and concrete. Until with a deafening whump, the pressure released and an entire section of the beach was left bare. Clean sand exposed where a mountain of garbage once stood. Izuku's eyes widened. All Might's jaw dropped to the floor. The ocean breeze whistled awkwardly. Izuku whispered. I didn't know it could do that. All Might stared at the crater-like indentation of perfectly cleared beach. Then at Izuku. All Might stared at the crater-like indentation of perfectly cleared beach. Then at Izuku. Then back at the beach. Young Midoriya, he said slowly, please, for the love of everything holy, warn me next time before you do that. Izuku nodded rapidly. Wandersku, sir? All Might sighed deeply, rubbing his temples. Your mother is absolutely going to kill me. Toshinori stared at the cleared patch of beach, hands resting on his bony hips. He had seen villains tear down buildings. He had seen natural disasters rip apart city blocks. But he had never seen a 15-year-old accidentally erase a mountain of trash using gravitational collapse. His eye twitched. Midoriya. Izuku stood stiffly, face pale, hands trembling from the backlash of using an advanced technique without preparation. Weiss All Might? Toshinori inhaled slowly. Young man, we need to adjust your training plan. The next day, All Might brought a new binder. It was thicker. Much thicker. Since your quirk is extremely volatile, he began delicately, we are adding controlled quirk development to your routine. Izuku perked up. Really? Yes. But only in small, supervised intervals. Izuku nodded rapidly. The new plan included strength and endurance as before, strict cooldown PRDIS, sensory training to prevent six eyes overload, controlled quirk activation drills, meditation to stabilize infinity's passive field, a written log of every infinity fluctuation. Izuku flipped through the pages reverently. All Might, this looks like a college course. Yes, All Might said grimly. And if your mother asks, it is absolutely not dangerous. Izuku winced. She still texts you every morning, doesn't she? All Might shuddered violently. She has the tone of a woman who could intimidate a dragon. The first time Izuku tried to recreate laps. Blew intentionally, it went horribly. He tried to focus the attraction point on a rusted pipe. Instead, every loose screw, bottle cap, and bolt within 20 meters shot toward him like shrapnel. He yelped and threw himself to the sand, infinity flaring instinctively and blocking the barrage. All Might called from a safe distance behind a large freezer. Good defensive reflexes, young Midoriya. Izuku groaned. I almost vacuumed myself into a scrap tornado. Progress. All Might declared. Just remember, your power obeys concepts, not instincts. Think in terms of vectors and points, not objects. Izuku scribbled notes furiously. Concept manipulation, got it? It happened on a cool afternoon midway through the training. Izuku and All Might sat on a half-clean section of the beach, taking a break after moving an especially stubborn washing machine. Izuku drank water from his bottle, glancing shyly at the man beside him. He had known All Might for weeks now, had talked with him every day. But calling him anything other than All Might still felt impossible. Even now, the idea of using Yagi-sen made his stomach twist. He cleared his throat. All Might, see, can I ask something kind of private? All Might raised a brow, smiling that broad, easy smile. Of course, young Midoriya. Ask away. Izuku fidgeted with the cap of his bottle, staring at the sand. Well, your quirk. It's so different from every other one I've ever studied. It changes you. It feels like it moves. He hesitated. And when I accidentally touched your power with 6 eyes, it didn't feel like a single quirk at all. All Might's smile thinned. Izuku braced for a reprimand. Instead, All Might sighed, looking out toward the water. I suppose you were bound to notice sooner or later. With those eyes of yours, it's a miracle you didn't realize the moment we met. He rested his elbows on his knees. My power is called One for All. A quirk passed down from one person to another, each generation adding power to the next. Izuku's breath caught. A transferable quirk? Indeed. All Might nodded. Its origins are tragic, its purpose heavy. I inherited it from my master, and I have spent years searching for someone worthy to carry it after me. Izuku's heart leapt before he could stop it. I can do it, he blurted. If you need someone to inherit it, I can help. I can take it. All Might turned sharply. Izuku. Izuku froze. All Might's voice was firm, unwavering. You already carry a burden most heroes never face. Your infinity is incredible, and your 6 eyes let you perceive things no child should have to process. Your path will be difficult, but that doesn't mean you're alone. Izuku stared down at his hands. They were shaking. But I want to help you, he whispered. I don't want you to fight alone. All Might softened. His large hand rested gently on Izuku's shoulder. Young man, you already do. Izuku blinked rapidly, eyes burning. All Might continued quietly, almost reverently. I see you work until your muscles give out. I see how you struggle to control power that could crush a city block. And every time you get back up, every time you smile through it, I feel hope. Izuku's breath hitched. Izuku's breath hitched. You don't need One for All, Midoriya. You're going to be a great hero because of who you already are. Your presence reassures me that Japan's future is in good hands. Izuku let out a broken sound, half laugh, half sob. All Might reached out and pulled him into a tight, steady hug, gentle but unshakable. And if that burden is too hard to carry, never fear, young Midoriya, for I am here. Izuku pressed his face against All Might's chest, crying openly now. It wasn't weakness. It was release. The release of a burden he didn't know he'd been carrying. All Might, I'll work hard. I'll make you proud. You already have. All Might murmured. They stayed like that until Izuku's sobs faded to shivers and the waves grew loud again. Then All Might stood, returning to his trademark grin. Now then, let's get back to work. This speech won't clean itself. Izuku wiped his eyes, smiling through the last of his tears. Yes, All Might. About 2 months before the exam, Izuku pushed his sensory training too far. He tried to read the flow of spatial pressure around 3 objects at once underscore. A refrigerator, a washing machine, and a discarded AC unit underscore. The world went white. Every quirk in the area flashed in his mind. All Might's unstable embers, faint movements from passing civilians, distant electromagnetic signals underscore. Izuku gasped, clutching his head. His knees buckled. Yagi underscore Sen caught him just before he hit the sand. Easy, easy kid. Breathe. Izuku pressed his forehead into All Might's shirt, shaking. I can't turn it off. Then don't fight it, All Might murmured. His voice was steady, patient. Let it pass through you. Vision like yours isn't meant to be forced. They stayed like that until the world dimmed back to normal. They stayed like that until the world dimmed back to normal. Izuku whispered, sorry? Never apologize for learning, All Might said, patting his shoulder. By the 8th month, Izuku could drag a full refrigerator alone. His back and arms were defined for the first time in his life. The 6 eyes no longer overwhelmed him on reflex. He could activate infinity in a perfectly controlled shell. Lapse. Blue could target a single object without pulling in everything else. His stamina doubled. All Might observed him during a run and nodded approvingly. Young Midoriya, you're nearly ready. Izuku slowed, panting. For the exam? For you, All Might corrected. And for the life you're choosing. He smiled proudly. You've come a long way. Izuku tried not to burst with excitement and a little fear. Izuku sat on a clean stretch of beach, now almost completely restored. He stared at the horizon, hands buried in the warm sand. All Might walked up beside him, looking at the reclaimed coast. Incredible, isn't it? He said softly. A few months ago, this place was a graveyard of junk. Izuku nodded. And now, it's a beginning. All Might grinned at him. Tomorrow marks the last phase of training. Work hard. Sleep well tonight. Izuku clenched his fists with determination. Yes, Yagender-san. The classroom was stark, functional, and completely devoid of unnecessary decoration. Katsuki Bakugo stood near the back, arms crossed and jaw tight, scanning the room with a mix of impatience and determination. So, this is where all the hopefuls gather, he muttered under his breath, his voice carrying just enough for a few nearby students to hear. Everyone here was aware of the UA entrance exam's brutal standards, but their presence showed they still dared to dream. Across the room, a red-haired boy with a wide grin waved. Hey, you're Bakugo, right? I'm Eijiro Kirishima. Hoping to make it into UA like everyone else. Katsuki snorted, not moving his gaze from the door. But means you're serious. A soft voice chimed in from a few desks over. I'm Ochako Uraraka. Nice to meet you. She smiled politely, though her eyes flicked nervously to the more aggressive students in the room. Katsuki's expression was unreadable, but inside he noted, so they're the ones I'll have to compete with. Before any further introductions could take place, the lights dimmed slightly, and a calm, commanding presence filled the room. The students stiffened. You will refer to me as Aizawa-sensei, said a lean man with dark circles under his eyes and a perpetually bored expression. His voice carried weight without raising volume. I will be your instructor for this program. Do not mistake my demeanor for disinterest. Bakugo's eyes narrowed. Great. Another teacher who looks like he's about to lecture us to death. Aizawa ignored the mutter, stepping forward. This course is being held at Ingenium Hero Agency to provide real-world experience. It is designed to prepare you for the entrance exams to Japan's top hero schools. While most students here aim for Shiketsu Academy, I know all of you hope to meet the criteria for UA. That hope will need to be backed by skill, strategy, and endurance. He paused, scanning the room. Because I was reprimanded by Principal Nizu for pushing my UA students too far, this program falls under my supervision. That does not mean I will go easy on you. If you are not prepared to give your full effort, you will not pass. A murmur rippled through the students. Kirishima straightened, fists clenching. Uraraka glanced down at her notes nervously, and Katsuki's jaw tightened further. I suggest you start thinking of this as a simulation of real hero life. You will face dangerous scenarios, cooperate under pressure, and learn to evaluate your own limits. Katsuki's mind raced. Dangerous scenarios? Finally, some real action. Aizawa continued, eyes narrowing slightly. You will be tested individually and as a group. Failure to perform will not just affect you, it will endanger others. Complacency will not be tolerated. He exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair. This is not a game. You will push yourself to your limits. If you are here only to show off, or to prove something to your classmates, you will fail. Katsuki's fingers twitched at his side. Yeah, got it. Don't worry about me. Aizawa's gaze swept over him, unflinching. Good. That confidence may carry you, but overconfidence will kill you. Remember that. He stepped back, gesturing to the students. Tomorrow, we begin practical exercises. I expect everyone here to arrive ready to work, mentally and physically. Dismissed. The students shuffled out, murmuring among themselves, their shared goal hanging in the air, get into you, no matter what it takes. Katsuki lingered a moment, eyes flicking between Kirishima and Uraraka. He exhaled, pushing a strand of spiky hair from his eyes. This is the real deal. No shortcuts. No excuses. Time to show what I'm made of. The morning air smelled faintly of metal and rubber as the students gathered in the agency's open training yard. Various obstacles, walls, ropes, uneven platforms, and simulated hazards were laid out in a sprawling course. Katsuki Bakugo cracked his knuckles, scanning the course with a sharp, calculating eye. He didn't even glance at his peers, assuming they'd struggle to keep up with him. Move fast, don't slip, don't hesitate, Aizawa said, his voice calm but heavy. This is a movement drill designed to test agility, balance, and quick thinking. Completion time will be noted, as will safety. Bakugo smirked. Piece of cake. The first students went, darting over walls and swinging across ropes. Katsuki's attention flicked to Uraraka as she stepped forward. Her movements were deliberate, but when she activated her quirk, her entire body lifted gracefully into the air. Katsuki blinked. Floating? That's efficient. Uraraka glided over gaps, her trajectory controlled precisely with subtle hand and foot adjustments. She twisted midair to avoid a swinging obstacle, landing softly on the other side with barely a sound. Katsuki's eyes narrowed, not in jealousy, but in focus. Not bad, Aizawa murmured, watching her from the sidelines. Control is as important as speed. She's reading the course and adjusting accordingly. Katsuki gritted his teeth and moved next. Explosions hissed from his palms, propelling him forward in bursts. He launched himself over a wall, then rocketed across a gap, barely slowing midair. His movements were raw and explosive, a blur of power. Control, Aizawa reminded him flatly. Explosions are fine, but precision matters. If you miscalculate, you'll injure yourself or someone else. Bakugo growled, but slowed slightly, adjusting the angles of his blast to land cleanly on the next platform. His pride bristled at the idea of being outdone, yet he couldn't help noting Uraraka's fluid movements. Aizawa continued his silent supervision, eyes scanning every student. When a minor misstep occurred, another student stumbled over a low beam. He flicked a hand, neutralizing a hazard instantly. Focus, he said tersely. Anticipate your environment. Adjust accordingly. The exercise continued, students repeating the course multiple times. Uraraka's control impressed even Katsuki, while Kirishima approached it with sheer determination, using brute strength to power through obstacles, landing with a resounding thud each time. Katsuki's internal thoughts raced. Brute strength works, but finesse like that might be useful in certain situations. I need to keep up, can't let anyone outshine me. By the end of the drill, all the students were exhausted but alert, sweat dripping, muscles straining. Aizawa's expression remained unreadable, but he made notes in his clipboard. Good first run, he said finally. Tomorrow, we increase difficulty. Adjust your strategies now. Remember, your goal isn't just speed, it's adaptability, awareness, and control. Katsuki clenched his fists, a small smirk forming. Adaptable? Fine. I'll crush this course. As the students filed out, Bakugo glanced at Uraraka and Kirishima. Smart. Can't underestimate them. His pride stirred, but alongside it was a growing sense of realization. Skill alone isn't enough. Strategy and control matter, too. The training yard had been transformed into a simulated urban environment. Rows of cheap, humanoid combat bots scuttled through the streets, programmed to test detection, reaction, and combat skills. Katsuki Bakugo crouched behind a low wall, fingers twitching. The metallic scent of the bots filled the air, and the faint hum of servos made his nerves hum with anticipation. All right, time to show what I can do, he muttered, eyes scanning for the first target. A voice called from behind him. Excuse me, are you Katsuki Bakugo? He turned sharply, ready to glare, and was met with a tall, composed boy with neat dark hair and glasses. His back bore a small engine-like device, the signature of a mobility quirk. I'm Ida Tenya, the boy said, bowing slightly. I'm also participating in this course. We'll be judged on both individual and group performance. Proper coordination is critical if we're to meet UA's standards. Katsuki snorted. Coordination? I can handle these bots on my own. Ida's lips pressed into a firm line. Perhaps, but reaching UA requires more than strength. Strategy, foresight, and teamwork matter just as much. You should consider it if your goal is truly the top. Katsuki crossed his arms, scowling. Yes. But if it comes down to raw power, no one can touch me. I just wish Midoriya was here. Could have shown him what my explosions can really do, and maybe seen what that weird barrier quirk of his is all about. Ida blinked, slightly taken aback. I see. You have a strong sense of competition, but relying solely on power may be a liability. If you wish to reach UA, you will need to balance strength with DSPL. Katsuki gritted his teeth, but internally noted, DSP, fine. I can do that, for now. Aizawa's voice cut through the yard. Begin. Engage the targets, neutralize them efficiently, and avoid unnecessary risk. Observe, plan, execute. Katsuki launched himself forward, explosions propelling him through the first line of bots. Sparks flew as metal limbs were shredded, his attacks precise despite their raw force. Ida sprinted alongside him, engines in his legs whirring. Bakugo! You should consider approach angles before striking. Direct attacks are effective, but prediction and positioning are crucial. Katsuki smirked, launching a mid-air blast to intercept another wave. Don't tell me what to do, Rocket Boy. I got this. As the drill continued, Katsuki kept glancing toward Ida, noting his calm precision. The boy's movements were efficient, every step planned and deliberate. He wasn't flashy, but he got the job done. Despite his confidence, Katsuki's mind kept drifting back to Izuku. Izuku's not here. I could have shown him what I can really do. Maybe even learn something about that barrier quirk of his. He's probably holed up at home or training somewhere stupidly hard. The thought sharpened his focus. Fine. I'll crush this course for the both of us. He'll see what I can do next time. As the last cheap bot collapsed under their combined efforts, Aizawa's sharp eyes scanned the field, making mental notes. Not bad, but both of you need refinement. Bakugo, your control is improving, but don't let pride override strategy. Ida, your movements are precise, but speed must match efficiency. Next drill, group coordination with dynamic targets. Katsuki exhaled, adrenaline still pumping, and shot a glance at Ida. Heh, maybe this teamwork thing isn't total crap. Just don't slow me down, all right? Ida adjusted his glasses. Understood, Katsuki. Let's aim to push each other toward UA, together. Katsuki smirked, though his thoughts lingered on Deku. Together, somehow. But he better not steal my spotlight next time. The yard had been transformed once again, this time into a simulated disaster zone. Collapsed walls, toppled crates, and overturned vehicles were scattered across the ground. Smoke machines and alarms added urgency to the scene. Aizawa stood to the side, arms folded, eyes sharp as ever. This drill focuses on rescue operations. You will locate victims, extract them safely, and navigate hazards without relying solely on combat. Efficiency and safety are paramount. Katsuki Bakugo clenched his fists, scanning the scene. Rescue work? This is stupid. I can blow a path through any rubble faster than crawling through it. The first victim was a mannequin pinned under a heavy beam. Katsuki charged forward, sparks hissing from his palms, ready to blast it free. Aizawa's voice cut through the noise. Bakugo! Stop. Not everything requires an explosion. You will endanger the victim and yourself if you act recklessly. Katsuki skidded to a halt, jaw tight, eyes burning with frustration. Then what do you want me to do, sensei? Crawl around like a wimp? From nearby, Kirishima stepped in, carefully prying the beam with brute strength but controlled movements. His face was determined, his muscles straining, but he never lost sight of the mannequin's safety. Bakugo watched him work. Aizawa's eyes didn't leave Katsuki. Observe your peer. Strength without control is a liability. Learn to balance force and caution. You are a hero in training, not a demolition crew. Grumbling, Katsuki approached another victim, this one wedged under rubble too wide to blast without risk. He hesitated, watching Kirishima's method, then carefully used small, targeted blasts to lift debris incrementally. Each move was precise, calculated, and controlled, less flashy, but effective. Guess I can do it without blowing the whole place apart. Ida Tenya passed by, moving a victim with mechanical precision, quietly noting angles and clearance. Katsuki caught a glimpse and muttered under his breath, "Everyone's trying to outshine me, in it." Aizawa stepped forward, voice low and cutting through the chaos. Bakugo, you're beginning to understand the balance between strength and caution. Keep pushing, but don't let ego compromise safety. Kirishima's example shows proper restraint, but maintain your speed. Katsuki exhaled sharply, shaking his head. "Yeah, I got it. Just don't expect me to go soft." By the end of the drill, all students had completed rescues under Aizawa's watchful eye. Katsuki, though frustrated at the slower pace and constant admonishments, had successfully navigated the disaster zone without endangering a single victim. As the students regrouped, Kirishima gave him a quick nod. "Nice work, Bakugo. You're improving." Katsuki smirked, trying to mask his begrudging respect. "Don't get used to it." Aizawa's eyes flicked toward him once more. "Tomorrow we advance to teamwork drills in dynamic environments. Consider this a foundation. Strength is important, but control, awareness, and adaptability are what make a true hero." Katsuki clenched his fists again. "But no one's going to beat me to UA." The small ice cream shop buzzed with the soft hum of conversation and the mechanical whir of freezers. Katsuki Bakugo stepped inside, his eyes immediately catching the colorful promotional sign. "Limited edition All Might Sunday, only today." "Finally," he muttered, stepping up to the counter. "Gimme one of those." As the server prepared his order, he overheard a familiar voice behind him. "I'll take the All Might Sunday too." Katsuki froze, instantly recognizing the tone. Slowly he turned and there he was. Izuku Midoriya, green hair slightly mussed, glasses slightly askew, looking just as earnest as ever. They settled into a quiet corner of the shop, trays of melting ice cream between them. Conversation drifted toward the mundane school schedules, the fleeting absurdity of the All Might promotion, and the weather. "So, you've been keeping up with your training?" Katsuki asked, taking a deliberate bite. Izuku nodded eagerly, spoon midair. "Yeah. I've been working on controlling my quirk more efficiently." "Eat a lot, but it's getting better." Katsuki snorted. "Figures. You always overdo it." Izuku laughed nervously. I want to be ready. You know, for the entrance exams. And, everything else." They fell into a brief silence, the noise of the shop humming softly around them. Katsuki found himself watching Izuku fidget with his spoon, adjusting his glasses, and for a moment, the years fell away. Once outside, the bustling city sounds filled the air. They walked side by side for a few steps before Katsuki veered off. Even as he walked away, The thought lingered stubbornly, unacknowledged but undeniable. I want things to go back, but I don't know how to reach him anymore. The sun had risen early, casting long shadows over the sprawling training facility. Today's exercise was designed to test the students' observation skills, deductive reasoning, and quick thinking, detective work under pressure. Aizawa stood at the head of the group, arms crossed, eyes sharp and unyielding. This drill simulates real-world hero investigations. You will be assigned a scenario, locate and identify targets, gather intelligence, and report findings accurately. Mistakes will be noted. Efficiency is critical. Katsuki Bakugo muttered under his breath, glancing at the other students. Observation, investigation. I can blow up a villain in seconds. Do I really need to do this? As he scanned the area, a new voice piped up behind him. Well, if it isn't Bakugo, the famous explosive prodigy. Katsuki turned sharply, fists tensing. Standing there with a confident smirk was Nito Monoma, a fellow UA hopeful known for his showy personality and competitive streak. Who the hell are you? Katsuki asked, brow furrowed. Monoma bowed dramatically. Nito Monoma, at your service. You'll find I'm the epitome of skill, intelligence, and charm, all qualities that will make me an ideal UA candidate. Katsuki grunted, already annoyed. Just stay out of my way. Monoma's grin widened. Oh, I intend to do more than that. I'll be the one to shine brightest here. Loud, explosive, predictable. I'll be watching you closely. The drill began. Each student was assigned a sector to search. Katsuki moved through the designated area, eyes sharp, hands ready, but this time, not for combat. Instead, he had to carefully examine surroundings, notice subtle clues, and anticipate the movement of suspects hidden among the simulated crowd. Monoma hovered nearby, narrating everything he saw in a theatrical whisper. Ah, Bakugo, notice how the tile near that stack of crates has a scuff mark. Surely you see what that implies. Katsuki clenched his fists, trying to ignore the commentary. Just do the DM drill, who cares what he says? He paused in front of a suspect mannequin partially hidden behind a trash can. Using a combination of observation and intuition, Katsuki deduced the mannequin's path and recorded it quickly on his pad. Not bad, maybe I'm not useless at this. Monoma leaned in, eyes glittering with competitive glee. Impressive, for someone who relies solely on explosions. But don't get cocky, Bakugo. This is only the first challenge. Katsuki shot him a sharp look. I'm not here to play games. Just stay out of my way and maybe I won't ruin your perfect little record. Aizawa's low voice cut through the tension. Bakugo Monoma. Focus on the scenario, not each other. The exercise is about deduction, not ego. Katsuki huffed but refocused, scanning the area and noting small inconsistencies others might miss. Meanwhile, Monoma continued to chatter, narrating every detail he perceived, his smugness a constant irritant, but Katsuki couldn't deny that having someone so observant pushed him to pay closer attention. By the end of the drill, Aizawa called the students together. You've all performed adequately. Some of you excelled at observation, others at deduction. Bakugo, your instincts are sharp, but you need to balance speed with accuracy. Monoma, you talk too much, but your attention to detail is commendable. Katsuki muttered as he left the yard, glancing over his shoulder at Monoma. Damn it, this guy's annoying, but he's not half bad. Maybe he'll actually make me step up my game. The morning sun filtered through the tall windows of the training hall, casting long, sharp shadows across the obstacle-laden floor. Aizawa's voice rang out, clipped and precise. Today's exercise focuses on trust and coordination. You will be paired with a partner. One student will be blindfolded, relying entirely on the other for guidance through the course. Accuracy and safety are paramount. Katsuki Bakugo groaned, crossing his arms. Great, just what I needed. Blindfolded. Fantastic. Beside him, Uraraka Ochako's eyes sparkled with quiet determination. Don't worry, Bakugo-kun. I'll guide you. We'll get through it together. Katsuki blinked, momentarily taken aback. Her optimism, it was infuriating. But he didn't say anything, only muttering. Just don't slow me down. Aizawa handed Katsuki the blndfld. Bakugo, you'll be blindfolded first. Zuko, guide him. Begin when ready. Katsuki hesitated, then reluctantly placed the blndfld over his eyes. Instantly, his other senses kicked into overdrive: the faint scrape of sneakers on the mat, the distant clink of chains from the obstacle course, the subtle draft from the ventilation system. All right, keep moving forward. 3 steps, turn slightly left, stop. Uraraka's voice was calm, precise, and patient. Katsuki gritted his teeth but followed, trusting her directions with an uneasy mix of pride and irritation. This is not bad. She's actually helping me navigate without screwing up. Careful, there's a low beam ahead, duck now. Uraraka's warning came just in time. Katsuki crouched, narrowly avoiding a collision. As they progressed, Katsuki felt his confidence growing, not because he was used to being guided, but because he trusted her instructions. Her calm presence counterbalanced his impulsiveness, forcing him to slow down and pay attention. You're not half bad at this, he admitted, gritting out the words as he moved past a tricky set of swinging obstacles. Uraraka smiled brightly, encouragement in her tone. You're doing great. Just a few more steps, then the final ramp. Katsuki's pride flared, the frustration of relying on someone else tempered by the satisfaction of succeeding. When he finally reached the finish, Uraraka guided him to a stop. He pulled off the blndfld, blinking in the light, and realized he hadn't fallen or collided once. Not bad, gravity girl, he said, a rare smirk tugging at his lips. Guess I can follow instructions when I have to. Uraraka laughed softly. See? I told you we could do it together. You just have to trust a little. Katsuki shook his head, partly annoyed but partly reflective. Maybe working with people isn't always a weakness. Aizawa's sharp voice cut through the hall. Exercise complete. Debrief in 10 minutes. Evaluate your partner's performance. As Katsuki walked to the side, he stole another glance at Uraraka. He didn't say it aloud, but the experience had left a mark. Cooperation, patience, and trust, skills he'd once dismissed as secondary, were more valuable than he'd realized. The bus stop was quiet, the hum of the city faint in the background. Katsuki Bakugo leaned against the shelter, arms crossed, waiting for the next bus. His gaze flicked to the approaching figure of green-haired Izuku Midoriya. Kaken! Izuku called softly as he drew near. Katsuki's brow furrowed. Hey, what are you doing here? Why aren't you at that hero school prep thing like everyone else? Izuku hesitated, hands fidgeting with his backpack straps. But I've got a private training schedule. It's kind of strict. Katsuki narrowed his eyes, unimpressed. Private trainer, huh? Sounds like a cop-out if you ask me. Or are you just scared of getting yelled at by your mom for being too far from home? Izuku flinched, caught off guard by the bluntness. He opened his mouth, then paused, choosing his words carefully. I just have to follow the schedule she helped me set up. It's important. Katsuki smirked, the familiar mixture of irritation and teasing in his tone. Yeah, sure. Important. Guess I can't make you grow a backbone, huh? Izuku's cheeks flushed, but he held his gaze, subtle determination shining through. You manage. I have to. The bus arrived with a hiss, and they stepped on together, standing side by side in the cramped vehicle. Silence fell for a moment, broken only by the faint hum of tires on asphalt. Yet underneath the quiet, both felt the unspoken weight of their rivalry and the lingering connection that had existed since they were children. As the bus moved through the city, Katsuki muttered under his breath, mostly to himself. Still can't read him like I used to. Guess things really are different now. The sun dipped low over the training grounds, casting long shadows across the now quiet obstacle courses. The participants gathered in a loose semicircle, sweat-streaked and dust-covered, their expressions a mix of exhaustion and pride. Aizawa stepped forward, his usual stern expression softened just slightly. You've all shown improvement over the course of this camp. Your skills, your DSPLN, and your ability to adapt have grown. Keep pushing yourselves. I expect at least a few of you to make it to UA next year. A murmur of excitement ran through the students, some exchanging glances, others straightening with renewed determination. Kirishima's voice broke through, bright and energetic. Alright, everyone. Before we go, let's seal our promise. The red-haired student bounded toward the center of the group, spreading his arms wide. Circle. Fist bump. Together. Uraraka, Monoma, and the others eagerly followed, forming a tight-knit circle. Katsuki Bakugo hesitated, arms crossed, glaring slightly at Kirishima. Fine. Don't expect me to go easy on anyone. He reluctantly slid his fist into the circle, meeting the others in a firm bump. Despite himself, a small part of him felt a flicker of enjoyment at the camaraderie. Kirishima's grin widened. We're gonna make it to UA. No matter what. The circle tightened, fists bumping one last time in unison, sealing their shared resolve and the promise of their futures. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the training camp came to a close, leaving the participants exhausted but determined, each carrying their own motivation to make it to the prestigious halls of UA. The early morning sun slanted across the train windows, casting long stripes of light across the worn seats. Katsuki Bakugo slouched against the wall, his arms crossed, eyes half-lidded but alert. Beside him, Kirishima's cheerful energy barely contained itself, bouncing slightly in anticipation. So, this is it, huh? Kirishima asked, grinning. The big UA entrance exam. Katsuki grunted. Yeah, don't get any ideas about messing around. Only idiots get left behind. From the row ahead, two adults muttered to each other, their voices just loud enough to carry. The number of applicants this year is insane. Most of them won't even get in. UA's standards are brutal. Second or third tier schools will take the rest. At best, a handful make it into UA. Best case scenario, some of them will get into Shiketsu. Katsuki's brow furrowed as he overheard the conversation. He leaned slightly toward Kirishima. Did you hear that? Most people won't even make it. UA's really that tough? Kirishima's grin didn't falter. Yeah, but that just means the ones who do will know they earned it. The train jolted, drawing attention to a familiar voice from across the aisle. Well, if it isn't Bakugo and Kirishima, Nito Monoma called, leaning casually against a pole. His signature smirk in place, he tilted his head. Heading to UA, are we? Try not to fall behind, explosive boy. Wouldn't want your pride to get bruised before the exam even starts. Katsuki's hands clenched into fists, but he said nothing, choosing instead to give Monoma a hard glare. Kirishima chuckled nervously. Monoma's smirk widened. I'll see you two at the test site. Let's see who's really ready to make the cut. As the train slowed to approach the station, Katsuki adjusted his bag, eyes narrowing slightly at Monoma's smug demeanor. This guy, he's going to be a headache. Fine. Let him watch. I'll show him what real skill looks like. The whistle blew. Students began gathering their belongings, the chatter of hopefuls filling the car. Kirishima clapped Bakugo on the shoulder. Ready to go crush this thing? Katsuki snorted. Yeah. Just don't slow me down. Together, the pair stepped off the train, the sprawling campus of UA rising ahead of them, the first real challenge of their hero journey looming. The morning sun sparkled off the waves, casting a warm glow across the quiet stretch of sand. The once cluttered beach was clean now, its transformation a testament to months of sweat, grit, and determination. Izuku Midoriya walked along the shoreline, sneakers crunching softly against the sand. Ahead, he spotted All Might standing near a driftwood log, the sea breeze tugging faintly at his jacket. Despite his usual grin, there was something calmer about him now, an air of reflection that Izuku had come to recognize. Yagi-sensei, Izuku called, waving as he jogged the last few steps. The hero turned, smiling wide. Ah, Midoriya. Just the young man I wanted to see. Izuku slowed, catching his breath. I just wanted to see you before the exam. It didn't feel right not to. All Might chuckled, his voice warm and rumbling. You've certainly earned a moment before the storm. The entrance exam for recommend students is no walk in the park. Izuku rubbed the back of his neck, smiling sheepishly. Yeah, I figured. That's kind of why I came. I wanted to thank you for everything. For training me, for believing in me. All Might straightened, brushing his hands off. You've done more than I ever asked for, young man. But before you take your next step, I've got some news of my own. Izuku blinked. News? All Might's grin softened. I've taken a teaching position at Shiketsu Academy. I'll be helping to shape the next generation of heroes. Think of it as keeping one foot in the future. Izuku's eyes widened. You're going to be teaching? That's amazing. Shiketsu's students are really lucky. All Might chuckled. Let's hope they think so too. Still, it means I won't be far. And I'll be watching closely to see how you do. Izuku hesitated, then smiled shyly. So, are you going to wish me luck? All Might tilted his head, a teasing glint in his eyes. Luck? Midoriya, you won't need luck. His tone shifted, steady and sincere. You've worked for this. Every scrape, every late night, every drop of sweat, this moment is yours. So go out there. Show them who you are. Izuku's throat tightened, but he grinned. I'll do my best, sir. I promise I won't let you down. All Might reached out, resting a hand on his shoulder. I know you won't. You've already proven that a hero's strength isn't just about power, it's about heart. And you've got more of that than anyone I've ever met. Izuku blinked rapidly, his chest full of something between pride and awe. Thank you, Yagi-san. All Might gave a final, approving nod. Now go. The world's waiting for the hero you're becoming. Izuku squared his shoulders, taking one last look at the ocean before heading up the boardwalk. All Might watched him go, wind brushing at his coat, pride and quiet faith softening his expression. With Midoriya here, he murmured to himself. Still too early for that thought, best let him enjoy his youth. I should introduce him to Torino when there's time though, he'll give the old geezer some headaches. The sun hung low over Aldra Elementary's playground, its warm light spilling over the jungle gym and rows of half-buried tires. Laughter and shouting filled the air, the kind that only 6-year-olds could make sound both joyful and cruel. Izuku Midoriya stood apart from the others, his tiny hands clutched around his backpack straps. His dark sunglasses, too big for his round face, sat awkwardly on his nose. He could hear them whispering again. Why is he wear those dumb glasses all the time? Maybe he thinks he's better than us. Bet it's 'cause he doesn't even have a quirk. Izuku flinched, lowering his head. He wanted to explain that the doctor said his eyes were special, that the world looked too bright, too loud without the tinted lenses, but he'd learned early that explanations didn't help. They just gave the bullies more ammunition. A ball bounced off his shoulder. Hey, sunglasses freak. Don't ignore us. He stumbled back, clutching the strap tighter. His lips trembled. Didn't what? Think we'd notice? Another kid sneered, stepping closer. Take him off. What are you hiding? Before he could respond, a small explosion cracked through the air, sharp and startling. The bullies froze, turning toward the sound. The do you think you're doing? One of the kids stammered. We're just dash. Picking on Izuku again? Katsuki cut him off, stepping forward. You got a problem with his glasses, you got a problem with me. None of them moved. Katsuki's quirk wasn't strong yet, but the sparks at his palms and the fire in his voice were enough to make the other kids back off, muttering excuses as they retreated. Izuku stood frozen, eyes wide behind the tinted lenses. Katsuki turned to him, scowling. You're such a nerd, you know that? Letting those extras push you around. Izuku's voice was small. I didn't want to make trouble. Katsuki sighed, that big, dramatic sigh that only a kid trying to sound grown-up could pull off. You're hopeless. But then his tone softened just a little. Come on, Deku. Let's go home before they start crying again. Izuku smiled faintly, nodding. Thanks, Kaken. Don't thank me. Just stop letting him mess with you. As they walked toward the gate, side by side, the wind caught in Izuku's hair. The glasses glinted in the sunlight, reflecting a faint shimmer of blue, the faintest hints of something extraordinary that separated Izuku from the world. And Katsuki, glancing at that strange gleam, didn't yet know that one day he'd be chasing after that same light. The massive training arena of UA shimmered under the morning sun, steel, concrete, and hope forged into one sprawling battlefield. Thousands of would-be heroes stood ready behind the gates, every one of them waiting for the chance to prove themselves worthy of the greatest hero academy in Japan. Katsuki Bakugo rolled his shoulders, the familiar tension of competition thrumming beneath his skin. His palms itched with anticipation. The faint scent of nitroglycerin sweat mixed with the metallic tang of the air. To his right, Kirishima grinned, bouncing on his heels. "Man, I can't believe we're actually here," Kirishima said, eyes shining with excitement. "Dude, this is it." Katsuki smirked, cracking his knuckles. "Don't start celebrating yet, hair for brains. You'll just get left in my dust." Behind them, a familiar, smug voice cut in. "Huh? We'll see about that." Nito Monoma, hands tucked into his jacket pockets, leaned casually against the railing. "Copying you should make this a lot easier, Bakugo. Hope you don't mind me borrowing your style." Katsuki clicked his tongue. "Try it, copycat, and I'll blast you into next week." "Language," a nearby loudspeaker announced as Present Mic's voice boomed across the arena. "All right, listeners. The UA entrance exam is about to begin. Remember, points are awarded for destroying robots, 1-pointers, 2-pointers, and 3-pointers. There are no countdowns in real battles, so—" "Excuse me," he called out toward the stage. "You mentioned 1-pointers, 2-pointers, and 3-pointers. However, the scoring system wasn't fully clarified. There's another robot on the list. Could you clarify, sir?" From above, Present Mic's booming voice answered, cheerful as ever. "Good question, listener. There's also a 0-pointer out there. A big one. And it's got no points attached. So just avoid it as best you can." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. "Now then," Present Mic added, voice crackling with excitement, "there are no countdowns in real battles, so BZZT. Go, go, go." The gates burst open. Monoma didn't hesitate. The moment the buzzer went off, his hand brushed Katsuki's shoulder, and his palms exploded with identical crackling energy. "Thanks for the boost, Bakugo," he shouted over his shoulder as he rocketed forward, laughter echoing. "Oi, what the hell?" Katsuki barked, blasting after him. "Get back here, you damn thief." Kirishima roared with laughter, hardening his skin and sprinting after the two of them. "Man, you guys are wild. Don't forget we're supposed to break robots, not each other." The battlefield erupted into chaos. Dozens of robots swarmed the streets, steel giants lumbering, spinning, and firing off projectiles. Katsuki dove straight into the fray, explosions propelling him between wreckage and debris. Each blast was sharp, controlled, and devastating. A 1-pointer shattered under the force of his strike. A 2-pointer went up in a flash of flame and smoke. He could see Monoma ahead, mimicking his style almost perfectly, twisting midair, detonating blasts to launch himself higher. But Monoma wasn't satisfied yet. He brushed against Kirishima mid-sprint, and his skin instantly took on a jagged metallic sheen. 2 quirks for the price of 1. Monoma laughed, hardening his arm and punching through a robot's head. "Now this is what I call a bargain. But stop copying people and fight your own way," Kirishima shouted, grinning through the dust. "Sorry, can't hear you over all the winning." Monoma shot back. Katsuki snarled, blasting another 2-pointer into scrap. "Cheating little BSE. Copying my explosions and my moves." He landed beside them, smoke rising from his palms, and glared at both. "Out of my way. I'm racking up points, not playing tag." The battlefield rumbled as more robots advanced from every direction, and Katsuki grinned, adrenaline burning bright. He didn't know what that 0-pointer was yet, but whatever it was, he'd face it head-on, same as everything else. The testing room was vast and white, with polished floors that reflected the sterile glow of the ceiling lights. A line of 7 students stood at attention before a raised platform, where 3 figures waited: Q Principal Nizu, Midnight, and Eraserhead. Nizu stood centered, a teacup balanced neatly between his paws. Despite his small stature, his sharp eyes carried authority that made each of the students straighten up instinctively. "Welcome, everyone," he began, voice light but precise. "Congratulations on being selected for UA High's recommended candidate evaluation. You have already proven exceptional in skill and potential, but today, we see if that potential fits the standard of UA heroes." Midnight flashed her usual grin, resting one hand on her hip. "Don't get too comfortable, kids. This isn't just about power, it's about judgment, adaptability, and how well you keep your cool." Beside her, Eraserhead stood with his arms crossed, tired eyes sweeping across the group. "Nizu's words may sound polite," he muttered, "but don't be fooled. You're being measured from the moment you walked in." A faint murmur rippled through the examinees. Nizu's tail flicked once. "Before we begin, I'd like each of you to introduce yourselves. Name, quirk, and what drives you to be here. Remember, the goal isn't to impress us. It's to show us who you really are." One by one, they stepped forward. Inasa Yurashi moved first, standing tall with an easy grin. "Yurashi Inasa. Quirk, Whirlwind. I've admired heroes my whole life, and I'll make Japan proud as the next #1. His enthusiasm was like a storm, wild and infectious. Next came Momo Yaoyorozu. Her poise was effortless, her voice clear and confident. "Yaoyorozu Momo. My quirk is creation. I can manifest objects from my body as long as I understand their structure. I believe a hero's true strength lies in preparation and intelligence." Shoto Todoroki stepped forward next. His posture was immaculate, voice calm and distant, as if he were reciting something rehearsed 1,000 times. "Todoroki Shoto. My quirk is half cold, half hot, though I only use my ice." He didn't elaborate, but the chill in his tone said enough. A faint frost crept along the floor beneath his feet before he stilled it with a breath. "I intend to prove that control and DSPLN are the true marks of strength." He said nothing more. Mismatched eyes didn't flicker as he stepped back into line. Finally, Izuku Midoriya. He adjusted his sunglasses slightly, a habit that never quite went away, and spoke with quiet determination. "Midoriya Izuku. My quirks are Infinity and Six Eyes. I want to become a hero who saves people with more than just strength, someone who protects others even when the odds say it's impossible." Now, the 3 remaining candidates stepped forward. Juzo Hananuki adjusted his gloves, voice calm. "Juzo Hananuki. My quirk is softening. I aim to become a hero who adapts to any terrain, any situation." Seiji Shishikura bowed with stiff precision. "Shishikura Seiji. My quirk, Meatball, enables me to reshape organic matter. I serve order, not spectacle." Ibra Shiozaki's gentle tone cut through the tension. "I am Shiozaki Ibra. My quirk is vines. I believe in protecting the innocent and guiding the wicked toward redemption." A brief silence followed. Nizu smiled faintly, setting down his cup. "Excellent. You all carry conviction, a promising start." He clapped his tiny hands once, sharp and clear. "Now, let's see how that conviction holds under pressure. Your first test will measure control and coordination, not raw power." Midnight grinned. Translation: "Don't blow up the field trying to impress us." Eraserhead sighed. "Follow me. And keep up. You'll need every ounce of focus you have." As the group followed, tension and anticipation mingled in the air, 7 prodigies walking into the next trial that would decide if they truly belonged at UA. Katsuki's eyes darted across the battlefield, trying to track Monoma as he zipped past, copying every flick and twist Katsuki had made. Kirishima had fallen behind, hardening his body against the few remaining robots he could reach, but even his hardening couldn't keep pace with the chaos. The 3-point robots were moving faster than expected, bigger, smarter, and heavier than anything Katsuki had faced yet. "Hey!" a voice called out, sharp and precise. Katsuki turned to see a tall girl struggling to manage a small swarm of 3-pointers. Her large, gloved hands moved in wide arcs, the movements of her quirk clearly keeping the robots at bay. She gestured urgently. "Could you help me with these?" Katsuki's lips curled. Help you? He smirked, shaking his head. I got a better idea. He angled a blast of his explosions toward the edge of her group of robots, causing them to stagger in her direction. The girl stumbled just slightly, enough to make her lose rhythm. Katsuki kept his expression neutral, letting her struggle for a moment, before stepping in. He launched a series of precise explosions from his palms, firing sharp bursts to dismantle the 3-point robots that had surrounded the ginger. Sparks and metal debris flew into the air, smoke curling around him as each robot fell. By the time he glanced back, the tall girl had regained control of the remaining 3 pointers, casting him a sharp glare. Katsuki smirked and shrugged, sending her a cheeky grin. All's fair in war. His focus snapped back to the field. Monoma was nowhere in sight, having disappeared ahead with his borrowed quirks. Kirishima was still lagging behind, muttering to himself as he fought a small cluster of 2-pointers. Katsuki clenched his fists, feeling that familiar surge of adrenaline. Let him get ahead. I'll catch him, and when I do, I'll rack up more points than anyone else. He didn't know where the 0-pointer was yet, but he was ready. Whatever it was, whatever it did, he'd face it head-on, and he wouldn't let anyone, not even a cheating copycat, take the spotlight from him. The first test area sprawled before them, a simulated disaster zone, complete with toppled structures, scattered debris, and dummies representing civilians in need of rescue. The air buzzed with tension as the 7 recommended candidates readied themselves. Izuku adjusted his sunglasses, the edges of his 6 eyes glowing faintly beneath the lenses as he scanned the field. With infinity at the ready, he mentally mapped out every obstacle, falling beams, precarious walls, and unstable rubble. Focus on coordination first, not brute force, Midnight's voice echoed from above, while Eraserhead observed silently from the sidelines, arms crossed. Inasa Yorashi moved across the field, his whirlwind gusts stirring loose debris with reckless energy. Todoroki, moving alongside, shot precise ice columns to stabilize the environment. Almost immediately, friction erupted between the two. Careful with that wind. Todoroki called, ice cracking under the sudden gust. I am being careful. You're too slow. Inasa shot back, eyes flashing. The tension threatened to disrupt the flow of the exercise. Momo Yaoyorozu quickly intervened, creating a platform between them while gesturing firmly. Inasa, Todoroki, coordinate your attacks, don't fight each other. You'll only endanger the dummies if you keep this up. Both boys paused, gritting their teeth, before reluctantly adjusting their efforts. Izuku observed, noting how Momo's calm mediation and constructive quirk allowed them to operate safely without compromising efficiency. Meanwhile, Juzo Hananuki softened concrete beams for easy shifting, Seiji Shishikura reshaped debris into paths, and Ibra Shizaki's vines stabilized unstable walls. Each candidate fell into rhythm, their quirks complementing one another. Izuku moved methodically, infinity forming a protective bubble as he lifted rubble and guided dummies toward safety. 6 eyes allowed him to predict structural failures and potential hazards before they happened. He could see stress lines forming on beams and walls as faint energy trails only he could perceive. At one point, a massive beam threatened to collapse toward Inasa. Izuku extended infinity just enough to halt its fall, creating a temporary bubble in which Inasa could safely maneuver. Careful, he shouted, adjusting the barrier as debris shifted. The field was alive with energy. Todoroki's precise ice stabilizations, Inasa's wind, Momo's supportive platforms, and the ingenuity of the new candidates all interweaving. Izuku's hands moved in fluid motions, infinity reacting instinctively to protect, push, and lift. Even the moments of tension between Todoroki and Inasa became a subtle rhythm. Momo's mediation kept their efforts aligned enough to avoid disaster. He felt a twinge of pride. For the first time, he wasn't just observing heroes in training. He was acting alongside them, making critical decisions and keeping people. Even when debris fell too quickly or a structure tilted unexpectedly, his dual quirks gave him the edge to avert disaster. As the timer continued to tick, Izuku's eyes, enhanced by 6 eyes, tracked every teammate, predicting their next move and potential hazards. He wasn't just participating, he was analyzing, adapting, and learning. And for the first time, the concept of working as a coordinated team felt almost natural. The test field was a sprawling mock city, toppled walls, scattered debris, and dummies representing civilians needing rescue. The instructor's commands echoed across the area, but Izuku hardly needed to hear them. His 6 eyes flared, scanning the positions, quirks, and trajectories of everyone around him. Yaoyorozu, Todoroki's ice is sending debris into Inasa's wind, adjusting the sunglasses that dulled the sensory overload. Sure enough, Todoroki's jets of ice clashed with gusts from Inasa's whirlwind, sending debris flying in unpredictable patterns. Momo directed several small objects between them, mediating the flow. Everyone focus on the civilians first. Control your quirks, she called out, her voice calm but commanding even over the chaos. Izuku adjusted his stance, infinity shimmering faintly around him. He extended his hands, projecting the barrier just enough to guide debris safely aside. A toppled dummy blocked the path of Juzo Hananuki's softening quirk, so Izuku subtly softened the impact, letting the ground flex harmlessly as Juzo stabilized the rescue. He glanced at Ibara Shiozaki, her vines snaking through the wreckage to lift a simulated injured civilian. With a flick of his eyes, Izuku mapped a clear path for her, ensuring no one was in the way of her vines. Shishikura Seiji reshaped an organic mannequin into a safe cradle for another injured person. Izuku's barrier prevented falling debris from interfering, allowing Seiji to work without interruption. Meanwhile, Todoroki and Inasa continued to spar with elements. Izuku's 6 eyes highlighted the potential collisions, and he adjusted his infinity zones just enough to nudge the ice and wind into separate paths without restricting either's range. Careful, Todoroki. That ice spike is too close to that wall. Izuku called, stepping in just as a chunk of concrete wobbled precariously. His barrier caught it mid-fall, redirecting it harmlessly into an empty street. Momo ran over to him, ready to make use her creations. Thanks, Midoriya. You've got a good eye for coordination. Maybe you could give me a hand with this next section? Izuku nodded, feeling the familiar rush of focus. He relished that moment, not fighting villains, not dodging explosions, just saving people efficiently, combining observation, planning, and precise action. As the exercise drew to a close, the instructors signaled the end. The group regrouped, breathing heavily but with a sense of accomplishment. Good work, Midnight called, a rare smile breaking her usual sternness. Some of you were overly cautious, but your teamwork prevented any simulated casualties. That's exactly what we're looking for in a hero. Eraserhead's gaze swept over the group, pausing on Izuku. Midoriya. Excellent situational awareness. Don't let your curiosity distract you from the mission. Izuku nodded silently, adjusting his sunglasses again. Nizu's small frame appeared in the center. It is clear that even among recommended candidates, natural talent is just the beginning. Coordination, quick thinking, and control of your quirk under stress, these will determine the heroes UA selects. As the group walked off the test field, Momo flitted beside Todoroki and Inasa, smoothing over lingering tension. Izuku lagged slightly, scanning everyone's quirks once more, a faint smile playing on his lips. This is what being a hero feels like. The battlefield was a shattered cityscape, walls crumbled, steel twisted, and debris scattered like obstacles in a deadly obstacle course. Katsuki's eyes flicked around, calculating angles, distances, and the 0-pointer looming above. His gaze then fell on her, a small girl with round, glowing fingertips and chestnut hair, trapped beneath a slab of concrete. Uraraka, he muttered, recognition sparking. The mechanical giant's massive hands swung downward. The ground trembled beneath its weight. Katsuki's chest burned with pride and determination. I don't need help. I'll take it down myself. He unleashed a concentrated barrage of explosions at the 0-pointer's legs, detonating the debris around it. Sparks flew and steel groaned, but the giant barely staggered. He surged forward, weaving between falling beams, firing rapid bursts at its torso. I've got this. I'll show them all I can handle anything. The 0-pointer's hand came down again, faster this time. Katsuki pivoted, blasting at the joints, forcing it slightly off balance, but a jagged steel beam from the wreckage caught him in the shoulder. He gritted his teeth and continued his assault, sending precise explosions toward its knees. Then the inevitable happened. The hand swung with crushing force, catching him squarely. Pain exploded through his body as he was slammed into the rubble. Darkness flickered at the edges of his vision, and his explosions sputtered out. His pride screamed, but his body refused to obey. Just when it seemed the zero-pointer would crush him entirely, a metallic wall slammed into the mechanical appendage. A steel-armored body braced against the hand, holding it high above Katsuki. "Move," straining against the colossal weight. "I've got this." Katsuki's vision cleared slightly, enough to see the armored figure holding the hand in place. "A minute, Steelhead saved me." He clenched his fists, jaw tight with grudging respect. Katsuki staggered to his feet, explosions reigniting in his palms. He launched one more calculated blast at the zero-pointer's legs, staggering the mechanical giant and buying just enough time for Steelhead to hold it steady until the instructors called the end. Breathing heavily, chest heaving, Katsuki glared at the fallen machine. His pride burned, unbroken despite the near-crushing blow. He shot Steelhead and a sharp glare, equal parts gratitude and irritation. Under his breath, he muttered, jaw tight, "Next time. I'll handle it all myself. No one's slowing me down." The mock city had been rearranged for the final test, debris, toppled walls, and barricades forming narrow alleys. At the center, a mannequin representing a civilian was held by a mechanical construct designed to mimic a villain's movements. The instructors' voices echoed over the chaos. "Remember, Nizu called from above. This is a hostage rescue. Neutralize threats while ensuring the civilian's safety. Precision matters more than raw power." Midnight's voice cut through, "And don't get reckless. Heroes don't sacrifice the innocent for glory." Eraserhead's calm, sharp tone followed. "Control and awareness. Anyone endangering the hostage will fail this stage." Izuku adjusted his sunglasses, feeling the familiar hum of Six Eyes heighten. He immediately scanned the villain and the surrounding area, Juzo, Ibra, and Shishikura all positioning themselves to support, Momo and Todoroki mediating debris, and Inasa preparing his gusts. "Careful, Inasa. That panel's going to crush the civilian if your wind hits it too hard." Izuku shouted, activating a faint pulse of infinity to nudge the object safely aside. "Got it." Inasa called back, redirecting the gust with a precise sweep. Juzo crouched near the civilian. "I've got a soft landing ready in case the construct moves erratically," he said, watching Izuku. Ibra's vines wove over the scene, gently lifting the mannequin to safety while keeping the villain at bay. "Clear path," she called, her tone calm but firm. Shishikura molded debris into a barrier, delaying the construct's approach. "Rear's covered," he shouted, giving Izuku room to focus. The mechanical villain lunged, launching objects toward the civilian. Izuku extended his infinity, intercepting the projectiles midair. "Now, everyone move out," he yelled, directing their movements with precise gestures. Todoroki used his ice to slow the construct's advance, carefully avoiding collisions with Inasa's wind gusts. Izuku observed, eyes darting between every quirk in play. "Juzo, soften that rubble if it tilts. Ibra, lift the civilian a bit higher. Shishikura, keep reinforcing barriers." His voice was calm, but each instruction was a lifeline, guiding the candidates like a conductor leading an orchestra. The villain's attacks became frantic, but with coordinated barriers, softened ground, and clever positioning, the civilian remained unharmed. And the construct was trapped in an electrical wire of Yayarosa's making. Nizu's voice rang out, "Excellent. The hostage is safe, threats neutralized, and teamwork executed efficiently." Midnight clapped her hands. "Impressive. Everyone who kept their head and collaborated gets top marks." Eraserhead's gaze settled on Izuku. "Midoriya, exceptional use of situational awareness and quirk control. Don't let curiosity override mission priorities." Izuku nodded silently, lowering his barrier. Around him, the other candidates breathed heavily, faces flushed with exertion and relief. Nizu stepped forward, his small frame accentuated by the sun's glare. Remember this exercise. Coordination, precision, and awareness, these are what make a hero worthy of UA. Each of you showed potential, but the real world requires more than raw power. As the group left the field, Momo whispered to Todoroki and Inasa, mediating a lingering dispute over positioning, while Izuku lingered, scanning the scene one last time. This is what being a hero really feels like, he thought. Protecting people, thinking ahead, and saving lives. Every choice matters. The battlefield had quieted, the echoes of the zero-pointer and other robots fading into memory. Katsuki leaned against a concrete pillar, breathing shallow, each movement sending a sharp pang through his side. Recovery Girl hobbled over, her long cane tapping the ground lightly. Her warm eyes swept over him, taking in the bruises, the cuts, and the obvious rib injury. Well, you certainly picked a dangerous one, she said with a small frown, kneeling down to his side. That zero-pointer, absolute waste of UA's resources. Dangerous, reckless, and completely unnecessary. Before Katsuki could fire off a retort, she leaned down and pressed her lips gently to the side of his ribcage, her touch radiating warmth. A tingling sensation spread through the broken bone, the sharp pain dulling into a bearable ache. He gritted his teeth, cursing under his breath. There, she said, standing up and tapping her cane. Should hold for now. But next time, think twice before throwing yourself at a mechanical menace like that. Katsuki blinked, muscles tense. I know what I'm doing, he barked, his pride bristling as he pressed a hand to his side. That thing was dangerous, I had to take it down. Recovery Girl's gaze softened slightly. Don't get me wrong, I understand bravery, but there's a difference between heroism and unnecessary risk. Remember that, young man. She shuffled off, checking the other participants as she went. Katsuki's chest heaved, and he rubbed at his arm where another pang of soreness lingered. Then a sudden, sharp jab landed in his bicep. Hey! Katsuki spun to see Uraraka, fists clenched and eyes blazing, glaring at him. You ignored me. You went after the zero-pointer instead of helping me. Do you have any idea how dumb that was? I was prioritizing. Katsuki shot back, voice rough with frustration. I don't need you holding me back, in it. Uraraka scowled. This isn't about you being held back, is that all you think about? Heroes are supposed to help people. And you left me to get crushed. Katsuki gritted his teeth, fists trembling with both irritation and lingering adrenaline. Maybe you shouldn't have been trapped under the rubble like some extra. What kind of hero lets a bunch of rocks stop them? For a moment, the two stood glaring at each other, the tension palpable. Katsuki's pride flared, refusing to back down, even as the ache in his ribs reminded him just how close he'd come to being crushed. Before the argument could escalate further, a solid, familiar voice cut through the tension. Hey, both of you, calm down. Katsuki and Uraraka both turned to see Kirishima jogging over, hands raised in a placating gesture, eyes sharp but calm. Bakugo, chill for a second. And Uraraka? I get it, I do, but yelling at each other won't help, he said firmly. Katsuki's glare sharpened, fists clenched at his sides. I don't need anyone sticking their nose in my business. Kirishima didn't flinch. I just think it's not manly to ignore a friend who needs help. Bakugo. Katsuki's eyes burned, jaw tight. Whatever. He spun on his heel and stormed off without another word, leaving Uraraka fuming and Kirishima exhaling with a frustrated shake of his head. Kirishima's grin returned, more confident this time. Don't worry. I'll talk to him later. He might not show it, but he'll listen to me eventually. Izuku sat with the other recommended candidates, hands clasped in front of him, gaze fixed on the TV monitors displaying the first participant's attempt. Shoto Todoroki moved across the training field with measured precision, ice spreading carefully over obstacles, creating barriers and paths without shattering a single wall. Even from here, Izuku could see the careful calculation in each movement, the way Todoroki's eyes scanned the villain's actions, and the precise timing of each ice construct. He's really controlled. Izuku muttered, adjusting his sunglasses. Even without fire, he's efficient. Momo Yaoyorozu, sitting beside him, nodded. That's exactly what the instructors are looking for, heroes who neutralize the threat while minimizing damage. Control is more important than raw power here. Izuku focused back on the screen as Todoroki finished his segment, the villain immobilized and contained in a controlled area. The instructor's commentary over the monitor noted how minimal collateral damage had been caused and how Todoroki's approach emphasized strategic thinking. Next up, Aizawa's calm voice cut through the murmur of the candidates. Yaoyorozu. Observe carefully. You will have the same objectives. Neutralize the villain while preserving the environment. Yaoyorozu's segment began. Izuku watched as she created ramps, shields, and carefully shaped tools to guide the villain's movements. Each creation was placed with precision, avoiding civilian dummies and maintaining structural integrity. She really thinks ahead, Izuku said, his 6 eyes analyzing her creation's durability and potential weak points. Every object she makes is calculated, almost like a chessboard. Juzo Hananuki, seated nearby, whispered, "It's impressive." She adapted her approach to make the villain react then act, rather than being passive. Izuku nodded, feeling a mix of anticipation and anxiety. He could feel the weight of his turn approaching. Every action he had observed, Todoroki's measured ice constructs and Yaoyorozu's coordinated constructs, had set a high standard. Finally, Aizawa's voice spoke again. "Midoriya. You are up. Take note of what you've learned, but remember, your objective is the same. Minimal damage, maximum effectiveness." Izuku rose, the familiar surge of focus coursing through him. Infinity hummed faintly at his fingertips, and he could feel Lap's blue pulsing beneath his skin, ready to manipulate force vectors if needed. He adjusted his sunglasses, letting his 6 eyes scan the arena, the villain's patterns, and potential environmental hazards. "Time to see what I can do," he whispered to himself, stepping toward the field with a sense of determination tempered by everything he had just witnessed. Izuku stepped onto the mock city field, the roar of the wind and distant hum of machines filling his ears. The villain, a humanoid training bot built for adaptability and aggression, shifted its stance across the rubble-strewn plaza. Aizawa's voice echoed overhead. "Remember, Midoriya, eliminate the target with as little collateral damage as possible. Prioritize control." Izuku exhaled slowly, pushing his sunglasses up the bridge of his nose. "Got it." The world sharpened. 6 eyes illuminated every vector of motion, the faint hum of the bot's servos, the air currents shifting around its limbs, the fragile structure of the walls surrounding them. Every detail came alive in glowing threads of potential outcomes. He moved first. The bot lunged, its heavy arms swinging down like a hammer. Izuku slid forward, infinity flickering into place just in front of his chest. The blow stopped inches away, the shockwave rippling harmlessly through the barrier. Using that same momentum, Izuku stepped into the flow, twisting around the arm and using blue to pull himself closer, like a slingshot snapping tight. His foot connected with the bot's knee joint, a precise strike that destabilized it without cracking the pavement. He landed, pivoted, and used blue again to draw himself out of range just as a counterpunch smashed through the air where he'd stood. In the observation room, Momo leaned forward. He's weaving infinity into his movements, not just blocking, but redirecting force through it. Aizawa folded his arms. He's using it like armor and weapon at once. Back in the arena, Izuku danced through the debris. The bot charged again, firing compressed air blasts to force him back. Izuku darted sideways, each step cushioned by the faint shimmer of infinity under his feet, the barrier bending space just enough to let him glide rather than stumble. He flicked his hand and sent a lapse blue outward, reversing the momentum of a falling concrete block and sending it spinning behind the bot. Then, before the machine could register, he pulled on that force, yanking himself upward in an arc over the bot's shoulder. "Let's finish this cleanly," he murmured. He dove. Infinity flared around his legs, cushioning the descent while amplifying the force of his strike. His heel slammed into the bot's upper torso, precise, contained, efficient. The machine staggered back into a wall but didn't collapse it, its internal circuits flickering to red as it powered down. Silence fell. Izuku stood amidst the dust, chest rising and falling with calm precision. He hadn't wasted a single movement. Every dodge, every strike had been measured for efficiency, for safety. Aizawa's voice came through the intercom again. Midoriya. Controlled aggression, perfect restraint. You've met the objective. From the observation room, Juzo gave a low whistle. He barely touched the ground half the time. It's like he was surfing on his quirk. Momo smiled faintly. No unnecessary destruction, and he didn't even break a sweat. Izuku lowered his hand, deactivating infinity. Just need to keep everything balanced, he muttered, more to himself than anyone. Power without control isn't strength. He stepped off the field as the simulation powered down, the other candidates watching quietly. For the first time, Izuku didn't feel out of place among prodigies. He felt like he belonged. Katsuki Bakugo slumped into his seat on the train, arms crossed and jaw tight, the rhythmic clatter of the tracks doing little to drown out his irritation. His ribs ached, even with Recovery Girl's healing. The dull sting was a reminder of his own limits. He hated limits. The train rocked slightly as it left the station, the orange sunset bleeding across the windows. Katsuki's reflection scowled back at him, sweat-streaked, eyes sharp, the faintest bruise still visible under his jaw. He thought about the test. The zero-pointer. The heat of the debris, the blinding light, the sound of metal crushing concrete. He'd been so close to blowing the DMN thing apart. If that steel-skin guy hadn't stepped in, he might have failed even harder. Katsuki's head snapped toward the aisle. Nito Monoma stood there, that infuriating grin plastered on his face, one hand gripping the overhead rail. I copied a mind reader quirk by accident. You're blocking the view, copycat, Katsuki growled, glaring out the window again. Monoma chuckled and slid into the seat across from him. Relax, I'm not here to gloat. He paused, smirk widening. Actually, that's a lie. Of course I am. Katsuki's palm twitched, tiny pops of nitroglycerin sparking between his fingers. Say that again, and you'll be eating the floor. Oh, don't be so sensitive, Bakugo. Monoma leaned forward, elbows on his knees. You've got a temper, but not the results to back it up yet. You tried to fight that zero-pointer head-on, bold, but stupid. Hero work isn't just about who hits the hardest, you know. Katsuki's eyes snapped up, burning with challenge. I don't need a lecture from a guy who hides behind other people's quirks. Monoma laughed, short and sharp. Touché. But tell me, when UA turns you down, where will you go? Shiketsu's taking applications soon. Maybe you can try your luck there. Plenty of students who talk big and fall short end up at Shiketsu. Katsuki's teeth grit. I'm not settling for second place. I'll get into UA, and when I do, I'll crush every single one of you wannabes who think otherwise. Monoma tilted his head, the smirk fading just enough to hint at curiosity. You really believe that? I don't believe it, Katsuki said, eyes narrowing. I know it. For a moment, silence. The hum of the train filled the gap between them. Then Monoma stood, straightening his jacket. Well, I'll look forward to seeing if that confidence holds up. Try not to explode before the results come in. He stepped off at the next station, vanishing into the crowd with that same insufferable grin. Katsuki stared after him, jaw tight, the last of the sunset painting the city in streaks of red and gold. His hands curled into fists. Shiketsu, huh? He muttered, eyes flickering. Like hell I'm going anywhere but you. The train rattled onward, and Katsuki leaned back, the fire in his chest burning hotter than the pain in his ribs. The room was still, almost unnervingly so. Bright light spilled down from a single overhead fixture, catching the metallic edges of the monitors that lined the walls. Each screen replayed fragments of the earlier tests, sparks of quirks, tactical data, the sounds of battle echoing faintly in the background. Principal Nizu sat behind a low desk, a cup of tea steaming gently beside him. His paws were folded neatly, eyes glimmering with that familiar, sharp curiosity, the kind that made Izuku feel like every thought he had was being weighed and measured. To his left, Midnight lounged casually against the wall, her posture relaxed but her eyes alert. Aizawa stood beside her, arms crossed, expression unreadable. Nizu broke the silence first, voice light and precise. Midoriya Izuku. Recommended by none other than All Might himself, quite the honor. Though, I imagine, also quite the weight to carry, Izuku straightened instinctively, hands resting on his knees. Yes, sir. I'm still getting used to that. All Might's been teaching me, but he hesitated, searching for words. I'm not him. I know that. Good. Nizu smiled faintly, sipping his tea. Knowing who you are not is the first step to understanding who you might become. He tilted his head. Tell me, then what does the symbol of peace mean to you? Izuku inhaled slowly. To me, All Might isn't just a hero. He's hope made real. When he's there, people believe things will be okay, even when they shouldn't. That's what I want to be. Not just strong, but someone who can give people that feeling again. Nizu's expression sharpened with interest. So you intend to become the next symbol? Izuku met his gaze directly. Yes. I'm going to be the next symbol of peace. For a heartbeat, the room was utterly silent. Then Nizu chuckled softly, not mockingly, but with a note of genuine curiosity. How fascinating. You speak with conviction, yet the times you live in are far from peaceful, Midoriya. He set down his teacup and clasped his paws. Tell me, are you aware of the global state of heroism lately? Izuku nodded. The villain attacks. There's been a sharp increase in large-scale incidents worldwide. Indeed, Nizu said, his tone darkening slightly. 5 months ago, the United States suffered the largest villain attack in 6 years. Entire districts of Los Angeles were leveled before containment was achieved. If not for the intervention of Star and Stripe, the world's #2 hero, and Captain Celebrity, ranked 11th, the death toll might have doubled. He paused, tail flicking once. And before that, the incident in China, last year. A city nearly erased from the map. The government refused international aid until it was far too late. It took All Might's personal intervention to end the crisis, and even then, over a month of devastation. Izuku's chest tightened. He'd read the reports. He'd watched the grainy footage, the endless smoke, the ruined skyline. Nizu studied him quietly, then asked, if you truly wish to be the symbol of peace, Midoriya, would you still want that title if it meant facing threats of that magnitude? If it meant being the one who must stand alone when the world is burning? The question hit like a weight in his chest. Izuku didn't answer immediately. He thought of All Might, smiling even when bleeding, standing even when breaking. He thought of the faces of those he'd already tried to save, even as a boy with no quirk at all. His voice came out steady. Yes. If that's what it takes to protect people, then yes. I'll face it. Even if I fail, I'd rather try and fall short than do nothing and let others suffer. For a moment, Nizu simply watched him, silent, analytical. Then, the corners of his mouth lifted into a small, genuine smile. An admirable answer, he said softly. Perhaps even a necessary one. He hopped down from his seat, paws clasped behind his back. You've shown adaptability, intelligence, restraint, and now conviction. Congratulations, Midoriya. You've passed the final test. Izuku blinked, stunned. Wait, really? Really? Nizu's tone brightened once more. Though, do keep this between us until the official results are announced. We wouldn't want to ruin the suspense for your peers. Izuku stood, bowing deeply. Thank you, sir. For the opportunity, for everything. I won't let you down. See that you don't, Nizu said lightly. The world is changing faster than ever. Let's hope UA can still produce the heroes capable of keeping up. As Izuku turned to leave, Aizawa gave a brief nod, subtle, but approving, while Midnight offered a faint, knowing smile. Outside the door, Izuku exhaled, a mix of relief and resolve flooding through him. His path was only beginning, but the weight of Nizu's words lingered. When the world burns, will you still stand? And Izuku knew, without hesitation, he would. The air around him was cool, almost too cool. Frost traced faint lines across the tiled floor beneath his chair. Nizu regarded him with quiet interest. You rely exclusively on your ice, yet your quirk is half fire. Why limit yourself? Shoto's voice was calm, deliberate. Because I don't need the other half. Power without purpose is meaningless. I'll rise on my own terms. Midnight arched a brow. Even if it means fighting with only half your strength? He didn't blink. It's better than becoming someone else's weapon. Aizawa's scarf shifted faintly. You've got conviction, but it borders on arrogance. You'll have to unlearn that if you want to function in a team. I'll work with others, Todoroki replied evenly. But I won't compromise who I am. Nizu smiled, sharp and knowing. Then I hope you're ready to discover who that really is. Where Todoroki was composed like ice, Momo Yaoyorozu radiated warmth and refinement. She sat perfectly straight, hands folded, eyes bright with focus. Nizu's tone was light. You performed admirably in the coordination and rescue tests. But tell me, Yaoyorozu, why do you want to be a hero? Momo smiled faintly. Because knowledge deserves to serve others. My quirk allows me to create from what I understand, but if I don't keep learning, then I stagnate. I want to build, protect, and teach through example. Midnight tilted her head. So it's about intellect for you? Not just intellect, Momo said softly. A hero's greatest weapon is preparation. If we can anticipate disaster before it strikes, perhaps fewer will suffer. Nizu chuckled. A scholar's approach to heroism. Yue could use more of those. She bowed her head slightly. Then I'll strive to be worthy of your trust. The moment Inasa stepped in, the room's atmosphere changed, like a gust of fresh wind blowing through a sealed space. Yurashi Inasa, sir, he boomed, saluting with enough force to rustle Aizawa's hair. Nizu blinked, amused. Ah, yes, the whirlwind himself. You certainly have energy. Inasa grinned, eyes blazing with sincerity. Thank you, sir. I just really love heroes. They're the best of what people can be. I want to be like them, to protect everyone with pride and passion. Aizawa sighed under his breath. Too much passion can get you killed. I know. Inasa said brightly. But better to die giving my all than live doing nothing. Midnight gave a wry smile. You'd fit right in with All Might's fan club. Nizu's chuckle was genuine. Perhaps. Still, your enthusiasm could inspire others if you learn to temper it with focus. Inasa nodded vigorously. I'll make the wind work for me, not against me. Juzo Hananuki entered quietly, hands clasped behind his back. His voice was calm, thoughtful, the kind that invited attention rather than demanded it. Nizu regarded him curiously. Your approach to the rescue test was unorthodox. You softened half the field. It made it easier for others to move, Juzo explained. If the terrain is safe, the heroes can focus on saving lives. Midnight tilted her head. You think like an engineer. Juzo smiled slightly. A battlefield's only as good as its footing. Heroes need solid ground. Aizawa's gaze lingered. You adapt to the environment instead of forcing it to adapt to you. That'll take you far. Nizu nodded. A soft quirk, but a sharp mind. I approve. Seiji's posture was immaculate, straight-backed, chin high, his expression carved from marble. Nizu folded his paws. You view hero work as a form of order, don't you? Yes, Seiji replied crisply. Chaos is a disease. Heroes exist to impose structure, to preserve balance. Midnight raised a brow. And those who don't share your disciplined outlook? They can be corrected, Seiji said flatly. With guidance or consequence. Aizawa exhaled slowly. You'll need to learn compassion before consequence. I'll learn both, Seiji replied. But I will not waver. Nizu's smile was faint. I suspect you won't. Light filtered through the room as Ibara Shiozaki entered, her vine-like hair gently swaying with each step. She bowed deeply, serenity radiating from her presence. Nizu spoke softly. Your quirk is quite beautiful, Miss Shiozaki. Yet your restraint during the combat test was remarkable. Why hold back? Ibara clasped her hands. Because violence should always be the last answer. A hero must lead by faith, not force. Midnight tilted her head. Faith in what? In redemption, Ibera said gently. Even the wicked were once innocent. A true hero saves hearts, not just lives. Aizawa's tone was low. That idealism will be tested here. She smiled faintly. Then I will welcome the test. Nisa's eyes gleamed. Beautifully said. The interview room was finally empty. The echo of departing footsteps faded into the sterile quiet, leaving only the faint hum of the overhead lights and the scent of tea still steaming in Nizu's delicate cup. Aizawa stood by the window, scarf loose around his shoulders, watching the fading light over Mizudafu. Midnight lounged against the far wall, twirling a pen between her fingers. Nizu broke the silence first, his tone light but edged with thought. 7 young heroes. 7 entirely different hearts. It's almost poetic, isn't it? Aizawa didn't turn from the window. Poetic's one word for it. Reckless might be another. Midnight smirked. You're just mad because half of them have more optimism than sleep in their eyes. Aizawa shot her a dry glance. Optimism gets you killed if you don't have the skill to back it up. Nizu's chuckle was quiet. Ah, but that's why they're here, isn't it? To learn. To stumble. To grow. He sipped his tea, eyes glinting. Each one represents a piece of what makes a hero complete. He raised a small paw, counting them off. Todoroki, the embodiment of power restrained by will. Yaoyorozu, intellect turned toward creation and foresight. Yarashi, the passion that refuses to bow to fear. Hananuki, adaptation and composure in chaos. Shishikura, the pursuit of order, even at personal cost. Shiozaki, compassion rooted in conviction. And Midoriya? He paused, smiling faintly. Hope. The most dangerous and the most necessary quality of all. Aizawa sighed. Hope doesn't mean much when the world's burning. You saw the numbers, Nizu. Crimes climbing again. Those attacks in America and China weren't isolated. Nizu's tail curled as he set down his cup. Exactly why we need them. The next generation must learn not only to fight villains, but to stand for something larger than themselves. Midnight crossed her arms. You sound like you expect them to save the world before they even finish orientation. The principal's smile deepened, equal parts mirth and melancholy. Oh, I don't expect that. Not yet. He looked to the window, to the skyline painted in dusk and smoke. But one of them will. One day. Maybe more. For a moment, silence filled the room, the kind that felt alive, stretched taut with unspoken hopes. Then Nizu's bright voice broke through again. Well then, it's been a long day. You both deserve some rest. Aizawa blinked, surprised. You're not turning in yet? Nizu smiled, folding his paws behind his back. Not quite. There are a few details left to prepare. Tomorrow, the UA staff will gather to choose this year's perfect batch of students to nurture. Midnight arched a brow. Perfect batch, huh? That's a bold claim. Not bold, Nizu replied, his small eyes gleaming with quiet certainty. Just hopeful. He lifted his cup once more in a soft toast as they turned to leave. To the next generation of heroes. As the door shut behind them, the room fell silent once more. Nizu looked out at the city lights beyond the window, faint, flickering stars against the horizon, and whispered to himself, let's see which of you will shine the brightest. The late afternoon sun bathed the quiet streets in gold, stretching long shadows across the playground. 6-year-old Izuku Midoriya stood on the curb, oversized sunglasses shielding his wide, anxious eyes. His small hands fidgeted nervously. Through the faint hum of his 6 eyes, he saw it. A rickety old cart wobbling perilously close to the edge, a little girl stepping too near. Every instinct screamed, if no one acted, the outcome would be disastrous. I have to, Izuku murmured, stepping forward, but his feet felt rooted to the ground. One miscalculation and he could make things worse. Oi, de! Quit staring like a scared rabbit. Move! The loud, familiar voice belonged to Katsuki Bakugo, slightly older, always louder than necessary. Blonde hair glinting in the sunlight, he charged forward, fists clenched, raw energy practically radiating off him. Before Izuku could protest, Katsuki slammed himself in front of the cart. The cart wobbled dangerously closer to the girl. Katsuki's scowl deepened. "Get out of the way. Don't just stand there." Instinctively, Izuku acted. With subtle control, his 6 eyes guiding every motion, he adjusted the cart's momentum, redirecting it harmlessly. He felt the weight of the wheels, the tilt of the axle, every part of it as if it were an extension of himself. The girl stumbled back, safe. Katsuki froze, eyes wide, jaw tight, momentarily speechless. "You did that?" he barked, part incredulous, part impressed. Izuku nodded, heart racing. "I couldn't let her get hurt. I just had to." Katsuki's smirk slowly spread, pride and exasperation mingling on his face. "Didn't need your powers, or whatever. Still, not bad, Izuku." Izuku's cheeks flushed. "Thanks, Kaken." For a heartbeat, they stood side by side, catching their breath. The street was calm again, the danger averted. Katsuki cracked his knuckles and grinned, already moving on to the next challenge, leaving Izuku behind, heart pounding and mind buzzing. Even then, young Izuku knew there was something about that impulsive, wild blonde kid, something that would always draw him out of hesitation. Aizawa slipped quietly into the UA meeting room, rubbing the sleep from his eyes. The discussion was already underway. He recognized the familiar tension in the air, the same argument that seemed to come up every year. "We should remove the 10-student limit cap," Namuri Kiyama's voice carried across the table, sharp and insistent. "There are dozens of qualified candidates this year alone. Limiting them arbitrarily prevents UA from nurturing the best heroes." Ectoplasm's hands tightened on the edge of the table. "Quantity is not quality. UA produces heroes who are meant to stand as pillars of society. Overcrowding would dilute the training, the focus, and the discipline that sets our graduates apart." Aizawa leaned back in his chair, expression neutral. Same debate every year. He didn't even need to raise his voice. His peers knew he was firmly against removing the cap. Nizu adjusted his glasses, voice calm but firm. "We must consider the long-term consequences. Fewer students allow for more individualized training. This has always been UA's philosophy." Namuri waved a hand. "And yet, the world's threats are increasing. Villain activity is rising in both scale and audacity. Can we afford to turn away capable heroes simply to maintain tradition?" Aizawa's eyes narrowed. "This argument happens every year, Kiyama. It never changes. And every year, the cap stays in place for good reason." Nizu called for a vote. "All in favor of removing the cap, please raise your hands." For hands went up. All opposed. 7 hands, including Aizawa's, went up firmly. "The motion fails," Nizu announced. He paused, looking around the room. "We train heroes not only to be strong, but to be examples. Maintaining our standards ensures they can meet that responsibility. The world is changing and villain activity is increasing in both frequency and intensity. We must be prepared for when the threats appear closer to home than we would like." Namuri muttered under her breath, but didn't press further. Aizawa finally spoke, voice low and slightly gruff. "Can we get on with the actual purpose of today's meeting? I didn't get enough sleep last night to sit through another debate." Nizu smiled faintly, a glint of amusement in his eyes. "Of course, Aizawa. Let us proceed. Today, we decide the students who will shape the next generation of UA heroes." Aizawa slouched in his chair, long hair falling over his eyes as the UA Hero Course teachers debated the fate of this year's incoming class. The room was warm, and the usual aroma of coffee and paper filled the air. He could feel the familiar tension of the annual discussion, a mix of pride, caution, and stubbornness, building up again. Nizu was perched at the head of the table, tail flicking as he surveyed the room. "Let us begin with the recommended candidates. The evaluations are complete, and the results are clear." Midnight leaned forward, smirking. Midoriya, Yaoyorozu, and Todoroki were exceptional, as expected. Their control, judgment, and ability to function under pressure leave no doubt. Ectoplasm added, "Indeed." But Todoroki still has an obstacle to overcome. His hesitation to use his fire side fully will need to be addressed. It will be the responsibility of UA's faculty to guide him through that, not just his raw ability, but his psychological growth. Aizawa grunted. That's the part everyone glosses over. He can't just be pushed to burn it all out without guidance. Nizu spoke, tail flicking with mild disapproval. Before we take vote over Inesa, let us also note the context beyond UA hero training. All Might and Sir Night Eye have been recruited to Shiketsu Academy to help elevate the level of their students. A murmur rose from the teachers. Nemuri raised a brow. So while we're preparing our class, we must also acknowledge that other institutions are being groomed by heroes of equally high caliber. Nizu's tone turned serious. Exactly. The role of a UA graduate is to become a hero capable of responding to incidents of increasing scale. Violent crime and large-scale villain activity are rising. We must prepare students to be ready for the real world. Nizu flicked his tail again. We also need to vote on Ibara Shiozaki. Her quirk, Vines, has utility in multiple scenarios, and her judgment under pressure is solid. Nemuri chimed in, enthusiastic. I'm in favor. She shows initiative and a strong sense of responsibility. Hizashi added, agreed. She coordinates well and demonstrates situational awareness that can complement any team. Izawa, voice flat, finally added, I'm for recruiting her. She's practical, and her quirk is manageable under pressure. Nizu's ears twitched. Opposing. Several teachers raised objections. Her utility in offensive scenarios is limited. We need students capable of both offense and defense. The vote was taken, 6 in favor, 5 against. Ibara would join UA's first-year class. Midnight leaned back. Her inclusion adds flexibility to the team dynamic. Nizu continued, as for Inesa Yurashi, while his performance at the recommend test was strong, he is better suited for All Might's class at Shiketsu. His quirk, Whirlwind, is difficult to control when working with others, and his temperament is challenging. Aizawa's expression darkened. His attitude is a pain to deal with. Whirlwind is too hard to manage alongside teammates. I'm against recruiting him. Nemuri and Hizashi countered, citing his raw potential and ability to perform in certain scenarios. He could be valuable in the right setting. The tally, 7 against, including Aizawa, and the remaining in favor. Inesa would not be admitted to UA, reinforcing the idea that he would be better suited to All Might's specialized training at Shiketsu. Nizu nodded. Very well. I believe it is best that Inesa is not accepted into UA. His style will fit perfectly with All Might's class and teaching methods at Shiketsu. This ensures both schools have capable graduates. Aizawa rubbed his eyes. So, can we move on to the public selections? I didn't get enough sleep last night, and this arguing isn't helping. There was a brief pause as everyone absorbed the information. Then Hizashi Yamada, casually leaning on the back of his chair, muttered, I noticed someone actually got negative rescue points this year. That's troubling. The room went silent. Ectoplasm blinked. Negative rescue points? Hizashi shrugged. It was in the evaluation sheets. Must be an anomaly. Aizawa pinched the bridge of his nose again. Of course. Something weird always comes up during this stage. Ectoplasm added, it is important to remember that these students were not just tested against themselves, but against scenarios that mirrored real-world threats. Only those who demonstrated judgment and adaptability can thrive at UA. Nizu's voice carried through the room. As for the public test, 3 more students managed to stand out and meet the Udata criteria: Tetsu, Tokoyami, and Minoma. Their performance demonstrated adaptability, situational awareness, and heroism beyond raw quirk strength. Midnight's smile widened. Tetsu, for example, showed remarkable bravery during the zero-pointer scenario. He arrived just in time to prevent a fellow student from being crushed. That kind of quick thinking and reliability under extreme stress is exactly what we need in frontline heroes. Ectoplasm nodded. Tokoyami's shadow quirk allowed him to stabilize another student simultaneously, minimizing risk and maximizing efficiency. Even without large-scale offensive power, his contribution was crucial. Aizawa made a note. These 3 earned their spots on merit alone, no recommendation needed. Aizawa exhaled, settling back in his chair. Niza gave a small, approving nod. The decisions are made. UA will begin training the next generation of heroes, 7 in total, leaving room for us to recruit exceptional students who emerge from the Young Heroes Sports Festival. After all, who would reject an offer to study heroics at UA? Aizawa noted the final list quietly. Midoriya, Yaoyorozu, Todoroki, Tetsu, Tokuyami, Monoma, Ibara, and any other potential dark horse from the festival. That'll be enough for now. The staff lounge was quiet except for the faint hum of the air conditioning. Namuri Kiyama leaned back in her chair, fingers drumming lightly on the table, a sly smile playing on her lips. Hisashi Yamada, ever energetic, sat across from her, arms crossed and a mischievous grin brightening his face. In the corner, Aizawa slouched, scarf loosely draped, his expression as unreadable as ever. Well, Namuri began, her voice low but teasing, it seems Shiketsu is going to be quite the spectacle this year. All Might and Sir Night Eye together again. Hisashi's grin widened. Finally, that old duo back in action. Just imagine the students trying to keep up. The sports festival alone will be fascinating to watch. Shiketsu's class will be full of surprises. Aizawa's eyes narrowed under his hair. Fascinating isn't the word I'd use, he muttered. 2 legendary heroes with their own teaching methods? They're only going to add to my headaches. Competing with them will be complicated. Namuri chuckled, leaning forward. Complicated, yes, but exciting too. The students are going to learn more in 1 semester than most could in years. Even you, Aizawa, can't deny that. Entertaining maybe, Aizawa replied flatly, but I'm looking forward to the result of their methods. They each have a strong sense of how things should be done, and the first years are bound to get caught in the middle. Hisashi waved a hand dismissively. Oh, come on. You've handled difficult opponents before. This is just a different kind of challenge. And you know you'll enjoy seeing All Might in action again, even from the sidelines. Aizawa let out a dry sigh, scarf shifting slightly. I doubt I'll enjoy being pulled into theatrics. The students can watch, learn, and stay out of trouble. That's the ideal scenario. Namuri's grin widened, a spark of mischief in her eyes. Well, even if it's a headache for you, it's going to be entertaining for the rest of us. I can't wait to see how the first years handle it. Aizawa remained silent, letting the observation hang in the air, only the faint twitch of his scarf betraying that he'd heard her. Entertaining, or a mess waiting to happen, he thought. Either way, Shiketsu was about to become far more interesting than he'd anticipated. Namuri leaned back, tilting her head as her eyes glimmered with curiosity. Think about it, All Might's energy, Sir Night Eye's strategic mind. The students are going to be stretched in ways they've never imagined. DSPLN and raw power combined. It'll be intoxicating for them. Hisashi nodded vigorously. Exactly. And their styles complement each other perfectly. All Might inspires courage and instinctual heroism, while Night Eye teaches the analysis, the calculation. The students will be forced to think and act simultaneously, like juggling fire and ice. Aizawa rubbed his eyes beneath his hair, unimpressed. Or they'll get crushed between the 2 extremes. Kids already struggle to follow one method. 2 contradictory styles might just leave them confused, overconfident, or exhausted. Namuri chuckled softly. Oh, Aizawa, always so skeptical. You underestimate them and their potential. Some of these first years are exceptional. They'll rise to the occasion, especially with guidance like this. Hisashi leaned forward, tapping the table with a finger. Take the sports festival, for instance. That's where we'll see the results of this teaching. The students will have to coordinate under pressure, with creativity and power. Shiketsu is going to be an absolute spectacle. Aizawa exhaled sharply. Spectacle? But my job won't be to watch. It'll be to keep them from turning a showcase of youth at A's first years into a disaster. These are teenagers with powers capable of city-level damage. I'm already predicting headaches. Nemuri waved a hand dismissively, a playful smirk on her lips. Headaches or not, it'll be worth it. The growth, the lessons learned, the confidence they'll gain. All Might and Night Eye will push these kids to see beyond what we could imagine for them. Hizashi's eyes sparkled. And don't forget, we might spot some rising stars we hadn't anticipated. Shiketsu has always had talent, but this year? With these two at the helm? The first years could make history. Aizawa simply stared at them, letting the words hang, and muttered under his breath, history or chaos. One of the two. The three of them shared a quiet moment, each imagining the students under the dual tutelage of legends, the air filled with anticipation and the subtle undercurrent of tension that comes with unleashing immense potential. The walls of Night Eye's office gleamed faintly under the soft light of dusk. Files and reports were arranged with precision. The only thing slightly out of place was the open window, letting in the cool air and the distant hum of the city below. Tashinori Yagi stood near the window, his long coat stirring faintly in the breeze. He looked thinner now, the once imposing figure of the symbol of peace reduced but not diminished. Behind the desk sat Night Eye, Mirai Sasaki, his posture perfectly straight, his expression as unreadable as ever. His yellow eyes, sharp and analytical, followed every small movement Tashinori made. Tashinori, Night Eye began, voice calm and clipped. You didn't have to come all this way to see me in person. We could have discussed Shiketsu's proposal over the phone. Tashinori smiled faintly, a trace of the old warmth in his eyes. Ah, but some things are better said face to face, aren't they? Besides, I figured if we're both going to be teaching there, we should probably try to look like we get along. Night Eye's lips twitched, but his expression stayed neutral. I wasn't aware Shiketsu required theatrics from its faculty. You're taking the position as a special instructor, not a public mascot. Tashinori chuckled. And you as a strategic analyst and advisor. Quite the pair we make, Mirai? The old master and his former sidekick, both back in the classroom. I'd call it irony, Night Eye replied evenly, if not poor judgment on the principal's part. Still as sharp as ever, Tashinori said, smiling. I see you haven't changed. I wish I could say the same about you, Night Eye replied, adjusting his glasses. You're half the man you used to be. Half still enough to shake hands, Tashinori said lightly, offering one. Night Eye ignored it. Let's not pretend this is a casual reunion. You came to talk about more than our new posts. This is about succession again, isn't it? Tashinori's hand fell back to his side. His smile faltered. You're right. It is. I've said this before, Night Eye interrupted, his tone steady but cold. Mirio is ready. He embodies what One for All was meant to be, selfless, fearless, and brilliant. If you're still holding on to the idea that someone else could be worthy, then you're lying to yourself. Tashinori sighed. Mirio's extraordinary, no doubt. But the world doesn't need another me, Mirai. It needs heroes who can stand on their own merits, not in someone's shadow. The world needs a successor to One for All, not a replacement to All Might. For a moment, Night Eye said nothing. Then he leaned forward, eyes narrowing. You mean you've already made your choice? Tashinori looked away, out the window, toward the horizon. Night Eye's voice hardened. You gave it to him, didn't you? That boy you recommended to you, Midoriya Izuku. Tashinori turned back slowly. No, I didn't. That seemed to catch Night Eye off guard for a moment, a flicker of surprise, quickly buried beneath his professional composure. I didn't give it away, Tashinori continued. Izuku doesn't have One for All. I simply saw potential, the kind I couldn't ignore. The heart to save others even when he can't save himself. Heart doesn't defeat monsters, Tashinori, Night Eye said quietly. Power does. And you're running out of yours. I know, Tashinori said almost gently. But that boy, he'll be a hero in his own right. He doesn't need my quirk to prove it. Night Eye's gaze softened, just slightly, before turning grave again. I suppose that means you're still clinging to the idea that One for All will wait for you to find another successor. You're gambling with the future. Tashinori didn't answer. Silence hung heavy until Night Eye spoke again, his tone shifting. You remember the vision I told you about, the one of your death? Toshinori's expression darkened. Mirai. I'm not finished, Night Eye said sharply, cutting him off. I've been seeing flashes again. Destruction. A city burning. A tide swallowing the entire coast. Something vast moving beneath the waves. I believe another large-scale villain attack is coming. Toshinori frowned. Where? Night Eye shook his head. Not here, not on home soil. But it's coming. He hesitated, then added, when it happens, Toshinori, don't go. Toshinori's eyes hardened. You're telling me to stand aside while people die? I'm telling you that if you go, you will die. Night Eye snapped, his composure cracking for the first time. And this time, I don't think even one for all can save you. For a long moment, the only sound in the room was the low hum of the air conditioner. Then Toshinori spoke, voice quiet but resolute. Then that's the risk I take. Comes with the job. Night Eye exhaled slowly, frustration bleeding into his voice. You never listen. Toshinori smiled, faint but genuine. And you never stop caring. Night Eye looked away, his jaw tight. Just promise me this, if you're going to throw yourself into the fire again, make sure it's worth it. Toshinori nodded once. It always is. The wind stirred the blinds, and for a moment, the two men sat in silence, old partners divided by duty, bound by the same unshakable conviction. As Toshinori stepped out of the administration building and into the cool evening air, a quiet heaviness settled over him. He had agreed to teach at Shiketsu because the nation needed stronger heroes, that much was true. But deep down, he knew another truth. He wanted to believe he still had something meaningful to give, even as his body failed him piece by piece. Night Eye may be right, he admitted silently. I might not have many good years left. The thought tightened something in his chest. He walked slowly down the path toward the gate, hands shoved deeper into his coat pockets. But if I can still guide the next generation, if I can still help even one student shine, then maybe that's enough. His mind drifted to Midoriya. Sending the boy to Gran Torino had seemed like a good idea at the time. Now he winced a little. That old geezer better go easy on the kid. If Izuku gets hurt and Inko finds out, she'll pluck out my eyes without hesitation. He let out a weak laugh at the mental image. Somehow, that thought was more frightening than any villain he'd ever faced. And yet, beneath the humor, a quiet fear persisted. If Mirai's visions are right, something terrible is coming. And I don't know if I'll be strong enough when it does. Still, he straightened his back as he moved forward. He would keep teaching. He would keep standing. And he would keep believing in the next generation, especially in that earnest green-haired boy with oversized sunglasses. Whatever awaited them, he would face it head-on. Because that, above all else, was what it meant to be the symbol of peace. Gran Torino's apartment looked more like a fire hazard than a home. Izuku stood in the center of the room, hands at his sides, 6 eyes quietly active. His senses were a clean lattice of data, air pressure, micro-movements, Torino's heartbeat, the twitch of an old muscle. The old man lay motionless on the floor. Izuku frowned. Are you actually unconscious or just testing me? A moment passed. You know I can see your heartbeat, right? Torino didn't answer, didn't move. But Izuku saw it anyway. The faint tension in the fingers. The controlled rhythm in the breathing. A subtle spike in Quirk energy in the calf muscles. He's going to attack from above. 3-second prep. Jump trajectory, left ceiling beam. Izuku inhaled and prepared his stance. Good instincts. Torino suddenly croaked, then blurred upward in a burst of speed. Izuku's eyes tracked him perfectly. The problem came a moment later. Torino's boot swung toward him and stopped. Inches away. Caught in a soft barrier of distorted space. The infinity. His impenetrable defense. Torino hovered awkwardly mid-kick, eyebrow twitching. Kid, are you serious? Izuku winced. Sorry. It activates on instinct. No, it activates because you rely on it like a crutch. Torino snapped, dropping to the floor once infinity allowed him through. I can't hit you. Training's pointless if I can't hit you. I can turn it off. You can't. That's the problem. Izuku's throat tightened. He knew the old man was right. Torino jabbed a finger at him. Starting now, and for the rest of your time with me, you fight with infinity completely suppressed. No automatic barriers. No passive defense. You get hit, you get hit. Izuku nodded. Understood. Good. Now, lesson 1 understood. Torino vanished. Izuku saw the angle, trajectory, momentum. He pivoted, narrowly avoiding the first kick without infinity. Better. Torino barked, ricocheting off a wall. Izuku read the angle of impact, the air displacement. He jumped sideways, using lapse blue as a soft vector adjustment, pulling himself just out of the blitz. Torino grinned midair. Your eyes are cheating, kid. Izuku didn't deny it. Watching Torino's bursts of acceleration, Izuku's mind broke it down. Muscle activation, quirk ignition, directional impulse. Could I replicate it? Not perfectly, but if I invert blue and push outward. A spark flashed in his palm. A ripple of reversed spatial force built underscore. Izuku moved his hand. Forward. Nothing happened. A soft pop. A tiny shockwave. The furniture rattled. Izuku blinked in embarrassment. That didn't go as I expected. Torino stared at him. Are you out of your DMN mind? You don't experiment mid-fight. Izuku straightened, cheeks red. 6 eyes mapped your quirk's mechanics, so I thought if I adjusted blue's vector, maybe underscore. No. Torino barked. Kid, mastering your toolkit comes first. Your quirk's already absurd. You have RO master what you have before trying to invent new physics. Izuku nodded quickly. Right. Sorry, sir. Torino sighed, long and exasperated. Demon All Might. He sends me the most troublesome problem child in Japan. He crouched again, quirk sparking. Now again. And this time, no infinity, no improvising, and no suicidal experiments. Izuku steadied his breath, 6 eyes sharpening. Yes, sensei. Torino smirked. Let's see if you can dodge me without breaking reality. And the training resumed. The open training yard stretched wide, with metal platforms and angled beams scattered like an obstacle course. Izuku hovered tensely on the edge of a platform, hands clenched, laps blue faintly flickering around his form. Focus on flow, not force. Torino called, hovering beside him, tiny wings propelling him effortlessly. Use blue to guide yourself through the air, don't just yank yourself around like a cannonball. Izuku inhaled, adjusted his stance, and leapt. He activated lapse blue, pushing off the edge to redirect his trajectory midair. Too much, too fast. He spun wildly, momentum miscalculating, and slammed into a steel beam with a loud clang. Sparks flew. He groaned, dangling upside down. Torino zipped over, a scowl hidden behind his grin. What did I just say about flow? You're fighting the air instead of working with it. Come on, kid, up you go. Izuku swung his legs, trying to push off, but his instincts were still over-reliant on lapse blue, causing him to overshoot the next landing. Relax. Torino barked, landing lightly on a nearby beam. Use blue like a rudder, not a rocket. Stop midair, shift your vector, and gain momentum naturally. You're not a missile, you're a person with quirk control. Izuku tried again, inhaling slowly, feeling the air currents around him. He flipped mid-jump, tapped blue to push his vector slightly left, then barely caught a platform with his foot. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. Better. Torino cheered, spinning around in a tiny loop. Now stop in midair, yes, midair, and pivot to gain forward momentum. That's how you chain jumps like a pro. Izuku activated blue again, nudging his trajectory slightly, paused for half a second, then pushed off to reach the next beam. He overshot by a little but managed to recover with a quick tumble. Not bad, not bad at all, Torino said, perching on a beam with a satisfied nod. Mistakes are part of learning. You just need to feel the rhythm of the air instead of thinking too much about numbers and angles. Izuku landed heavily on the next platform, sweat dripping down his face, chest heaving. I think I'm starting to get it. Torino raised a tiny fist. Starting to. Remember, aerial movement isn't about strength, it's control. Direction, pause, push, repeat. You'll get it with time. Now do it 10 more times before lunch. Izuku groaned, but a small smile tugged at his lips. He adjusted Lap's blue with more subtlety, ready for the next attempt, slowly learning to move like he wasn't fighting against gravity itself. The small apartment smelled of smoke and something vaguely burnt, though Gran Torino seemed entirely unconcerned. Izuku sat cross-legged at the low table, clutching a pair of chopsticks like they were weapons, while Torino moved around with uncanny speed, occasionally vanishing and reappearing to deposit charred scraps onto Izuku's plate. Nothing like a bit of carbon to toughen your stomach, Torino said cheerfully, sliding a particularly blackened piece toward him. You're thinking too much. Heroes don't have time to overanalyze every meal or every fight. Izuku hesitated, peering at the burnt edges. The looks were really crispy. Torino barked a laugh. Crispy is flavor. Don't make the same face All Might used to make when I fed him like this. That guy? Couldn't chew a steak without crying. Made him cry more than a few times during training. And believe me, I wasn't gentle. Izuku blinked. You trained All Might like this? Like a tornado with no brakes, Torino grinned, tossing another piece toward him. You think you've seen limits? I shoved him past every one. And you're lucky, kid, I don't plan on breaking you too much. As Izuku bit down on the charcoal black morsel, Torino leaned back against the counter, tapping his fingers. Look, Midoriya, being a hero isn't just about power. It's about speed, judgment, and knowing when to take a hit or when to give one. Sometimes it's the little things that matter more than flexing muscles or flashy quirks. Izuku chewed carefully, nodding. I understand. It's about thinking through every move and not just relying on strength. Torino smirked, leaning close. Exactly. And if you ever think you're too cautious, remember what I did to All Might. Kid thought he was untouchable. I taught him the hard way that even the strongest have blind spots. You'll find yours soon enough. Izuku swallowed, feeling a mix of nerves and excitement. I'll try to keep that in mind, Gran Torino. Good. Torino clapped his hands once. Now eat, or I'll start counting how many pieces you waste. And trust me, I have a memory like a steel trap. You don't want your mistakes logged in my head, believe me. Izuku forced a small laugh, taking another bite of the charred food. The taste was terrible, but somehow he didn't mind. Every burnt bite carried lessons, and somehow, it made him feel closer to understanding what being a hero really meant. Katsuki Bakugo sprawled across his bed, phone in hand, scowling at the screen. Every news outlet was buzzing with the same headline. All Might and Sir Night Eye take teaching posts at Shiketsu Academy to raise next generation of heroes. He tapped the broadcast. The Shiketsu principal stood before reporters, smiling with polished confidence. We are honored to welcome the symbol of peace and his former sidekick, he said. Their experience will provide our students with invaluable guidance. The program cut to an analyst in a studio. It is surprising, she began, that All Might would choose Shiketsu instead of given his long public association with them. But considering his age and the noticeable decline in his activity and stamina these last few years, this move makes sense. Shiketsu has excellent DSPLN, but their graduates historically don't perform at the same level as UA's. All Might's expertise could help narrow that gap. Of course, we'll have to wait and see. Katsuki clicked his tongue so sharply it echoed off the walls. Shiketsu? Seriously? He threw his head back against the pillow, glaring up at nothing. Why the hell is All Might wasting his time on those wannabes? He should be helping actual heroes in training. People like me. People who get into UA. The analyst kept talking, but Katsuki barely listened. Decline? Whatever. He's still All Might. And those Shiketsu losers don't deserve even a shred of his time. He crossed his arms, chin tilting up in defiance. I don't need him anyway, he muttered to the empty room. I'll reach the top at UA without All Might holding my hand. The commentator finished with, whether this move truly elevates Shiketsu's future heroes remains to be seen. Katsuki snorted. Seen when they all choke at the festival. A heat rose in his chest, Part irritation, part superiority, part something he would never call insecurity. They can have all might. They'll still never catch up to me. Principal Nizu sat at his desk with a cup of tea sized comically large next to his tiny paws. He watched the news replay of All Might and Sir Night Eyes standing proudly in front of Shiketsu Academy's gates. Beside him, Recovery Girl sighed. I still can't believe you supported his decision, she mumbled. Before Nizu could reply, his phone rang. He checked the caller ID. Endeavor fired. Nizu blinked. Oh dear. He clicked accept. Principal Nizu, Endeavor's deep, gravelly voice rumbled through the speaker. I trust you've seen the news. Yes, Nizu chirped brightly, tail flicking. Quite unexpected, isn't it? There was a long, tense silence on the other end. Then Endeavor asked, in the stiffest, most strained voice imaginable. Do you have any openings for teaching positions at UA? Recovery Girl nearly choked on her tea. Nizu clasped his paws, eyes glinting with wicked amusement. My, you're interested in education now, Endeavor? I simply believe, Endeavor growled, that if a certain symbol of peace is instructing students at another academy, it would be appropriate for UA to maintain its competitive edge. Nizu's whiskers twitched. Oh, I agree completely. However, he shuffled some papers theatrically. All positions are currently filled. Endeavor made a noise halfway between a grunt and an explosion. What about under... Oh, except for the home economics substitute slot next spring, Nizu added sweetly. Are you good with sewing machines? The silence that followed was so heavy Nizu could almost feel the temperature rising through the phone. Recovery Girl was shaking, trying not to laugh. Good day, Nizu, Endeavor finally growled and hung up. Nizu set the phone down, chuckling. Oh my, he's going to go punch a skyscraper out of frustration. That was cruel, Recovery Girl scolded, though her smirk said otherwise. Nizu picked up his tea. Cruel? Perhaps. Entertaining? Absolutely. UA Faculty Lounge, 20 minutes after Nizu's call. Hisashi Yamada burst into the lounge like a man carrying state secrets. Guys, you will not believe what I just heard, he practically shouted, waving his hands. Endeavor called Nizu, asking for a teaching job. Snipe froze mid-sip of coffee. What kind of job? Heroics, obviously. Present Mike replied. I mean, what else would the number 2 hero underscore? Power Loader poked his head out from under a table he was repairing. No, I heard different. Someone said he wanted to take over foundational ethics. Midnight blinked. Endeavor. Teaching ethics. That's the funniest thing I've heard all month. Before anyone could reply, Ectoplasm stepped in. I have been informed, he said ominously, that Endeavor wanted to replace Cementos entirely. Cementos nearly dropped his snack. Replace me? That can't be right, Recovery Girl huffed as she shuffled in. I heard he wanted Hatsum's old workshop so he could teach advanced fire-based homemaking. Power Loader sputtered. That's just pyromania with a syllabus. At this point, Aizawa dragged himself into the room, hair floating like a depressed ghost. He squinted at the chaos. What is happening? Mike put an arm around him. Shoyuta, buddy, have you heard? Endeavor begged Nizu for a job. That's not what happened, Recovery Girl muttered. Oh, but it gets better. Cementos declared. Someone told me he asked to co-teach family studies. Midnight nearly choked. Oh, that's rich. What's next? Parenting 101 with Endeavor. Snipe leaned forward conspiratorially. I heard, don't quote me, but I heard Endeavor offered to donate a brand new training dome if Nizu made him vice principal. Everyone fell silent. Then Aizawa pinched the bridge of his nose. You're all idiots. There was another pause. Okay, but underscore, what did he really ask for? Midnight asked. Aizawa sighed. Nizu said Endeavor asked if there were any faculty openings. Everyone, oh my god, that's worse. Hisashi slapped the counter. End of an era. The great blue flame defects to academia. Power Loader, he's gonna make the kids do push-ups in lava. Cementos, he'll melt the school. Recovery Girl, he'll melt you. Midnight doubled over laughing. This festival season is going to be a nightmare. Aizawa trudged toward the exit. Whatever. If Endeavor becomes a teacher here, I'm quitting. Where would you even go? Mike yelled after him. Aizawa didn't slow down. Anywhere that doesn't spontaneously combust. Endeavor sat in his agency office, reviewing reports, when Vernon burst in, wild-eyed, waving her phone. Boss. Is it true? He frowned. Is what true? That you're, she swallowed hard, trying to become a teacher at UA? Endeavor froze. What? Vernon held up the screen. Headline, Is Endeavor joining UA faculty? Insider sources suggest ethics instructor position. Ethics? Endeavor roared, flames spiking. Who said why would what kind of? Vernon backed away, hands up. Boss, I didn't say I believed it. But also, you might want to scroll. It gets worse. Endeavor snatched the phone. Endeavor rumored to replace Cementos, vice principal position possible. Endeavor to teach parenting and family dynamics? UA considers fire-based homemaking course. His flames sputtered wildly. Fire-based? What does that even? Vernon tried not to laugh. I think they mean, cooking? Or burning things? Hard to tell. Endeavor gritted his teeth. I asked one simple question to Nizu. Vernon blinked. So you did ask? For faculty availability, he snapped. Not this circus. Vernon sighed in relief. Oh good. Because everyone upstairs is freaking out about the idea of you teaching teenagers how to raise kids. Endeavor nearly combusted. I'm calling the rat. He dialed. Nizu did not answer. Shoto returned home to find his siblings staring at the TV, faces frozen in abject horror. Breaking news. Rumors suggest Endeavor may be joining UA as a teacher. Shoto froze so hard the air conditioner clicked. Natsuo turned around on the couch with the smuggest grin known to man. Whoa. Looks like someone's getting a parent-teacher conference every day. Fuyumi clasped her hands dramatically. Oh dear, Shoto, imagine if he tries to chaperone your field trips. Shoto blinked. I would rather. Natsuo, don't worry. I'm sure he'll only set fire to, 2 students. Shoto sat down very slowly, staring into nothing. If he becomes a teacher, that means he'd have to attend UA's school festivals. The parent seating. The parent speeches. Natsuo slapped his knee. He'll do a fireworks demonstration and set half the arena on fire. Fuyumi gasped. Oh no. What if he volunteers for the PDA? Shoto, do you know what he'd be like on a PDA? Shoto, flammable. Natsuo, flammable and loud. The TV continued, scrolling headlines. Could UA survive Endeavor as a teacher? Students react with fear and confusion. Shoto deadpanned at the screen. They're not the only ones. Fuyumi patted his shoulder consolingly. If the rumor is true, we'll all support you. Natsuo leaned in and whispered, You should transfer schools before he transfers schools to you. Shoto, I hate that this is a realistic concern. Meanwhile, in his office, Nizu sat with a cup of tea and a stack of printed rumors, highlighted, annotated, and ranked. Yes, he murmured, circling one with a red pen. Endeavor to teach family studies. Peak comedy. 10 out of 10. He pressed a button on his desk phone. Yes, hello, Daily Watch? I've received anonymously submitted information that Endeavor may indeed be seeking a role in family and ethical integration education. Quite groundbreaking. He ended the call, tail swishing. Aizawa glared from the doorway. You're enjoying this, aren't you? Nizu beamed. Oh, Eraserhead, I would never. He held up a rumor sheet titled, Endeavor applies for vice principal role, with little doodles of flames around it. Spread misinformation. I only curate it. Aizawa sighed, long and exhausted. You're going to tell him eventually, right? Oh yes, Nizu said cheerfully. But not before the press cycle peaks. Aizawa pinched the bridge of his nose. I need more coffee. Nizu hummed happily. And I need more rumors. All Might sat in the Shiketsu teacher's lounge with a cup of tea, humming peacefully. It was supposed to be a quiet morning. Then his phone buzzed. And buzzed again. And again. 3 reporters, 2 unknown numbers, 1 extremely panicked message from Present Mike, and 1 text from Midnight that simply read, "Mood." All Might frowned. What on earth? He turned on the TV. A news anchor stood dramatically in front of a graphic reading. Endeavor, new UA teacher? All Might nearly spilled his tea. Huh. The anchor continued. Sources claim UA is recruiting high-ranking pros, including possibly the number 2 hero _. All Might stood up so fast his chair fell. Me? Endeavor? The other teachers in the lounge turned to look. All Might grabbed the remote and turned up the volume. For analysis, we turned to our expert panel _. The expert, who looked like he hadn't slept in years, solemnly declared. Based on Endeavor's recent attempts to rebrand his public image, he may be seeking a more educational environment. All Might sputtered. Endeavor? Teaching? Children? His phone buzzed again _, this time from Endeavor himself. He opened it. Endeavor, did you tell someone I'm applying to UA? All Might, I did not. Endeavor, then why am I trending under #FireDadTeacher? All Might wheezed. Before he could respond, another headline popped up on the screen. If Endeavor joins UA, will All Might return too? All Might nearly swallowed his tongue. Return? To what? I just started here. A teacher from across the room whispered. Did you quit UA to dodge Endeavor? All Might flailed his hands wildly. No, absolutely not. I respect my colleagues, but I'm working next door to him. He'd set the break room on fire. His phone buzzed again. Midnight. LMAO, imagine him in the teacher uniform. All Might. What teacher uniform? His phone buzzed again. It was Present Mike. Present Mike. Bro, tell me it's not true. If he comes here I quit. All Might sighed loudly. I don't even understand the rumor. Finally, he slumped into a chair, defeated. Why am I even involved in this rumor? The pause. And why is #AllMightPD trending? He decided then and there that he would not investigate further. Some things were simply best ignored, even for him. Izuku launched upward again, the floor cracking beneath him. He twisted midair, trying to redirect himself the way Gran Torino drilled into him. You're pushing too hard. Gran Torino shouted from the ground. Control the output. Flying like a drunk pigeon ain't gonna save ya. I'm trying. Izuku yelped as he drifted sideways, then smacked the ceiling. But Gran Torino hissed through his teeth. I'm gonna send you the repair bill, kid. Izuku, hanging upside down, rubbed his forehead. Sorry. I lost balance when I angled the force. Then he paused. He wasn't falling. He wasn't grabbing anything. He was just there, suspended in the air. Torino-sensei? Gran Torino squinted. Are you floatin'? I'm not doing anything. Izuku swallowed, eyes wide. He felt the subtle hum of his infinity quirk adjusting around him. Normally, it kept objects from touching him, but now? It softened, evened out, spread into a uniform field. Gravity wasn't pushing him down normally anymore. Infinity was balancing his weight perfectly. I think, Izuku said slowly, I accidentally stabilized the field. Infinity can regulate incoming forces, so if I set it evenly around myself. He floated a few inches higher. I hover. Gran Torino stared at him like he'd sprouted wings. So you're telling me you can just stand in midair whenever you want? Izuku gulped. Looks like it? The old man rubbed his temples. Great. Fantastic. Sure. Why not? Next you'll tell me you can breathe in space. Izuku tried to move toward the ground by leaning slightly under. Instead he drifted sideways like a balloon losing its tether. Juich. He spun, tumbled, then thud. _ hit the wall again. Gran Torino grumbled, grabbing a broom and jabbing the wall. Get down from there before you knock the whole place over. Izuku slid down, still half floating, feet barely brushing the ground. But now that he understood the balance point, the hovering came naturally. Too naturally. Gran Torino? Yeah, floaty. I think, if I learned to shift the field deliberately, I could change direction mid-air. So, hover. Anything. Gran Torino snorted. Kid, you're basically cheatin' at gravity. Izuku brightened. So, we keep training? Oh, we're trainin', Gran Torino muttered darkly, already crouching to spring. You float. I hit you. We see what breaks first. Izuku braced. Gran Torino vanished in a burst of speed. Izuku's eyes sharpened, 6 eyes tracking Torino's rapid-fire paths with perfect clarity. His body rose. Infinity thinned. He drifted upward, dodging the first blitz. Training resumed. Gran Torino zipped past him in a blur of yellow and grumpiness. You're floatin' better, the old man barked, ricocheting off the wall, but floa ain't fightin'. Move with purpose, kid. Izuku hovered a few meters off the ground, breathing hard, eyes shining with focus. Torino's movements blurred, but 6 eyes caught every micro-adjustment, every twitch of his muscles before he changed direction. I know where he's going, Izuku muttered. I just can't get there in time. He dipped sideways _too slow. Torino slapped him in the back of the head. Think faster. Izuku steadied himself mid-air, palms out. Hovering was coming naturally now, Infinity adjusting to keep him off the ground. But hovering wasn't enough. He needed move. He needed speed. If I direct the attraction field, just a tiny increase. Blue flared around his hand subtle, not violent. He angled it behind him. The air distorted. And he shot forward. Not gracefully. Not even in a straight line. He zoomed past Torino like a rogue shopping cart and crashed into the opposite wall with a loud thump. Torino sighed. Congratulations. You invented panicked flight. Izuku peeled himself off the wall. That was That was movement. Fast movement. I just need control. Control. Torino scoffed. You bruise your own elbow, Tenen, the doorknob. Izuku took a breath. Covered the very. Blue behind Sandal. Eyes forward, track Torino's trajectory. Torino blitzed again. And this time, Izuku moved cleanly. No wild spin-outs. No crashing. He curved upward, slid sideways, then dropped altitude hovering inches above the ground. Izuku's eyes widened. He understood it now. Hover stabilized. Blue provided a pulling force. Together, they would become flight. Torino shot toward him again. Izuku leaned forward. Blue burst in front of him, controlled. Smooth. Powerful. Izuku rocketed forward, cutting across Torino's path. The old man's eyes widened a fraction of an inch. Izuku twisted midair, hovering just enough to pivot and tapped Torino's shoulder. Just a tap. But a hit. A real, clean, undeniable hit. Torino skidded across the floor and caught himself, blinking. Izuku hovered in front of him, chest heaving, face glowing with sweat and exhilaration. I did it, he panted. I can move. I can really move in the air. Gran Torino stared for a long moment. About time. He dusted off his hero suit and gave Izuku a sideways smirk. Don't get too proud. That was 1 hit. Tomorrow you'll need 2. Izuku broke into a wide grin, hovering higher without thinking. I'll get 10. 10. Torino barked. Kid, at this rate, you'll be lucky if you don't punch yourself in the face again. But Torino was hiding a smile. Izuku had crossed the threshold. He could fight in the air. And for the first time in his life, he felt like someday he could hold his own amongst the strongest. Izuku trudged home, muscles sore, lungs burning, and every inch of him still tingling from Gran Torino's relentless training. He barely noticed the hum of the city until the TV in the living room blared. And in a shocking twist, the announcer gushed, Enji Todoroki, the number 2 hero, may be joining UA High as a guest teacher. Izuku froze, hand hovering over the doorknob. Come again, he muttered, rushing inside. The screen cut to a shaky video clip of Endeavor striking a heroic pose on a rooftop. The announcer continued, barely containing excitement. Sources say the top hero could be taking on the next generation of students. Rumor has it he'll only appear at sunrise, enforce a strict flame-based regimen, and may even have students spar in full armor. Izuku blinked. Wait, armor? Sunrise? Sparring? From the kitchen, Inko called, Izuku, did you hear? They say Endeavor's going to be your teacher, and he might make you all run across rooftops while breathing fire. Izuku groaned, collapsing onto the couch. Mom, it's probably just one of those rumors blown way out of proportion, right? He's not going to actually show up and torch the school. On the TV, the announcer rattled off more absurd claims. Critics suggest he may only eat chili peppers for breakfast, carry molten lava in his hands for demonstrations, and perhaps, though unconfirmed, he'll have a personal assistant of laser-shooting drones. Izuku peeked out from his hands, muttering, "This is going to be a very, very long year, if any of this is even remotely true." Despite himself, a faint chuckle escaped him. The absurdity of the rumors, Endeavor storming the halls of UA, terrifying students with fire, drones, and armor drills, made it impossible not to laugh.